Within 10 minutes, 5 feet away, I can look at a Countach or a Diablo or an F40 and say, that's wrong, that's not correct. There's paintwork there, that interior's been redone. And that was from my dad. I want to meet with the owner, Mr. Robert Weiner. I want to help him market his $1 million properties. Think about it. If someone's spending $500,000 on a car, they are pre-qualified to buy this house. Robert calls me in his office and he goes, we're getting on the phone with Donald Trump right now. I'm behind on my mortgage. I'm behind on my car payments. End up in a lawsuit with a very good friend. My condo's gonna go into foreclosure. Breaking up with my high school sweetheart at the time. 2 cops walk in and they go, are you John Temerian? And I'm like, yeah, who hit my car? They're like, you have the right to remain silent.
Whoa. Welcome back to Rise, Life Stories of Accomplished Individuals. Thank you for joining us again. As you know, the entire premise of this podcast is to speak with accomplished individuals to understand what happened, to understand the chronology of their life, and to understand what led them to success, the failures, the challenges, and of course the triumphs. Today, we've got John Temerian with us. John, how's it going, man?
What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for doing this. You know, I really appreciate it. We met a couple of times socially, and we really hit it off. We actually met through our good mutual friend, Ronnie Vogel.
Yes.
We met at, I think, 2 of his events.
Yes. Ronnie has great events.
He has great events. And his events seem to all be car-themed.
Yes.
He was a race car driver at some point.
Ronnie, I met Ronnie like 18 years ago, and he was so dialed into the racing world and the supercar world. And I mean, I can't tell you, I've got some good Ronnie Vogel stories about him racing, but absolutely incredible.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So I want to jump in and I want to read the bio, the little tail of the tape, the accolades that I've written for you, and then I want to jump right into it. So, all right. So, saying that John Temerian is a renowned figure in the automotive industry would be an understatement. John is the president of Curated, vintage supercars, founded in 2015. Curated is no regular dealership. They are automotive historians specializing in ultra-low production vintage supercars built between the 1970s and the early 2000s. These vehicles are much more than driving enthusiasts' toys. They are a consistently performing alternative investment asset class. From what can be seen on the Curated website, in only 8 short years, Curated has sold hundreds of ultra-rare blue-chip cars like the 1997 Ferrari F50, 1993 F40 LM, 1999 Lamborghini Diablo VT Roadster, 1990 Lamborghini Countach 25th Anniversary Edition, 1987 Porsche 959, 2004 Ferrari Enzo, and a Bugatti EB110 GT, to name only a few. And that list is like among hundreds of cars, but to me, who's not educated in these type of vehicles, those stood out at me. Those in particular.
You did pretty good.
Did I do okay?
Did I pretty good.
Did I pick all right, good. With clients all over the world, Curated is known for discovering and restoring one-off analog vintage supercars, and has procured over 500 European cars produced in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Back in 2005, alongside Donald J. Trump, and I want to hear that story, and alongside Donald J. Trump and Barclays International Realty, John produced the first of its kind supercar event, the Palm Beach Supercar Weekend, which led to many more mega events. John also co-founded and is currently the president of Lula V, a Miami-based exotic and luxury car short-term leasing and rental firm. So before we jump into things, I want to say you're a very modest guy, because it almost feels like your accolades are like hidden on the internet. Like I had to dig a little deep, and I think that's a part of your modesty.
Well, thank you. That's a big compliment. It's weird sometimes hearing some of the accolades, but I think it's, when you've gone through certain things in your life and you've had maybe great success and then it was taken away, I think I'm so careful now, and I almost hate to use the word humble sometimes, because it's like, if you think you're humble, are you really humble? You know, it's like so I try to do my best of just maintaining like, okay, I'm shooting for the moon constantly. You know, I'm happy where I am, but I don't want to like.
You don't want to.
I'm only as good as my next success.
You don't want to jinx it. You don't want
Yes.
to jinx it. So, you know, it's always this thing, and I know this about myself, and I know this about a lot of people who've accomplished meaningful things in their life, is that you want to be humble because you don't necessarily want to like shout from the rafters, like all of the things that you've done. But if you look at kind of the people who are really successful, at least the ones in the public eye, guys like Kevin O'Leary come to mind, Mark Cuban come to mind. Like, these guys are always tooting their own horns. And I think initially, and I think one of the turnoffs for entrepreneurs in general is to look at that and be like, but it really is a promotional tool.
Yes, and I think it's super important to express to the world, especially if you have consumers, to say, I've done this, we've done that. But I think on that flip side, it's also like, what is really important to you?
Yeah.
And when you start to hit certain successes in your life and you hit these sometimes surreal goals, you sort of start to realize what's important as well. And it's not just selling X amount of cars or whatever it may be.
I think it's this constant thing where we all play small. Even when we achieve great things, we all have this like imposter syndrome, and we feel like it's a fluke that we got here, and if we start bragging, then we're gonna mess it up, and we're gonna fall. But in any case, let's kind of jump into things. Look, obviously you are an automotive, like you are the man in this part of the world, and my understanding is that you've got clients all over the world. You're shipping these.
Yes.
You're shipping these pieces globally. I want to dig into your business, and I want to understand your business.
Yeah.
But before that,
yes,
I want to go back and I want to understand kind of how all of this started. So from the research that I've done, you're third generation.
Yes.
You're a third generation like car guy is like not the correct term, because tell me about your grandfather and how he started out.
So I would say that today my ethics for hard work and my understanding of hard work come from my grandfather and father. There's no question. My grandfather immigrated to the U.S. from France, Marseille, which, if you know Marseille, it's a tough city. And he came here with $500 in his pocket, 2 kids, his wife, and he moved into a tenement home and barely spoke the language.
Here in Florida?
In Springfield, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And barely spoke the language. My dad was probably 5 or 6 and used to get made fun of because of his accent.
Sure.
So he did not want to speak French. He did not want to speak Armenian. And my grandfather drove trucks. He worked at a gas station. But his incredible ability were to actually just engineer things. If you had that ring and you wanted it remade exactly, he could make it for you. And I think it was a really special time in the U.S. It was when European cars first started to come to America.
That was in the 70s?
No, in the 50s.
In the 50s,
so late
way back.
50s, early 60s. Ferrari just started coming to the U.S. Jaguar, all these brands. It's after World War II. You've got this sort of influence of European sports cars in the U.S. market. And he was one of the first guys servicing those cars. They were just saving cash. My grandmother handled the money. I think the beauty, looking back on my grandfather today, I mean, he's one of the most important people to me in my life.
He's around.
He's passed.
Oh, okay.
But he had no concept of money. He had no value of the dollar. Like, he would be paying for something at Home Depot, which is a hardware store, and he would be going through his pockets, trying to understand a $20 bill from a 10. He just didn't care.
So he was all about his craft.
He was all about his craft.
The passion for these cars.
Yes, and not really for cars. It was just his work and doing the right thing and doing great things. So he started doing this as most immigrants. He wanted my dad to become a doctor or a lawyer or these different professions.
Well, that's the path, right? Immigrants come, They become entrepreneurs,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They become as successful as they can, and they send their kids to become
Yes.
professionals, lawyers or doctors.
Yes. And if you look back in photos to, let's call it 1960 to then 1966, you see this remarkable transformation in my grandfather's life, and they had nothing. And you see slowly, there's a photo of my grandmother wearing a fur, and they're driving a Rolls Royce.
Wow.
And, they're driving a Jaguar E-Type. So really a hardworking guy.
Sorry, I apologize for interrupting. What did he? Because he's a mechanic. He had a mechanic shop.
Yes.
How do you go from there to driving a Rolls Royce?
And he was a hardworking mechanic. He had this mechanic shop that we've actually gone back to take videos and pictures of, which is completely surreal to be there. I got emotional to be there. I almost feel like I'm going to get emotional now.
That's all right.
But, you know, he came from nothing and he built it up and was very generous. Again, he didn't have this mindset of saving or anything like that. He wanted to take care of people. And so he was this hardworking mechanic. And here, my dad, he was 12 or 13 years old, falls in love with cars. My grandfather's like, no. You're not going to be a mechanic. I want you to be a stockbroker. I want you to be a lawyer. I want you to be a doctor. My dad refused. And my grandfather was really mad at him and said, okay, go rebuild an engine. Good luck. Try. My dad apparently, I don't know the full story, but apparently he did an incredible job the first time rebuilding this engine. So he started working in my grandfather's shop, and his passion for cars is unparalleled. I've never really met anyone like him, and we'll get into that, because he's this very OCD, almost, I mean, it's sort of insane, his passion for these cars. And he took it to the next level. I mean, at 16 years old, his first car was a Lamborghini Miura, which back then was like $7,000 or $8,000. So very expensive in today's.
Yeah.
But imagine my grandfather bought it for him because he said, hey, if you keep working, we'll buy it, we'll fix it up, we'll sell it. You will buy another one, we'll fix it up and sell it.
So he didn't buy it for him for the purpose of like him showing off to his teenage buddies. He
Correct.
did it to flip, to do something to the car.
Yes.
The car wasn't brand new.
No.
So okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I see where it's going.
Yes.
Okay.
Important. So it was this constant like mentality of, okay, we're gonna buy something, we're gonna fix it up, we're gonna sell it, we're gonna fix it ourselves. Our hard work is gonna go into this, and I think that's where you see I would say that's where the DNA of sort of my story and the company's story starts, is in this concept of perfecting and making things better. My father is a genius mechanic. I mean, if my grandfather was like the engineer mechanic, my father has this incredible ability to rework problems and problem solve, diagnose things. And this was in a time where you maybe had 3 or 4 people in the U.S. selling Lamborghinis or servicing Lamborghinis.
So it wasn't like a high demand market.
Not at all.
Again, he's doing this for the passion.
Pure passion.
But they must have seen like an avenue for profitability, like doing this.
I mean, this was a time before the internet as well.
Well,
so
yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure.
if you wanted a Lamborghini, you were probably going to like some sort of a classifieds or newspaper, and how do you understand even the value? So it was a time where someone could really, the margins were probably great. There's a great story. My grandfather bought a Ferrari 250 GTO, which today is a $70 to $80 million car. He bought it for $6,000, and he fixed it up a little bit, and he sold it for $9,000. So it was like he won the lotto in 1968 or 69. That $3,000 was a massive margin, and you could never talk to him about that car.
But nobody sees. It's interesting because you operate in a realm of cars as appreciating assets.
Yes.
We all know, anybody who's listening to this knows that's not the case. Like you buy yourself your whatever you buy, even super high end. Like you go and buy a G-Wagon today, as much as they're coveted, they're going, unless you have the pandemic, which, but
of course.
In a regular market, everything goes down.
It's a depreciating asset.
Right.
Primarily. But
how did they know? How did they know which cars are going to go up?
Well, I don't think they did. I will say in that period, I would say until probably the 1980s, the concept of cars trading as appreciating assets did not really exist.
Yeah.
My dad swears that he did. I mean, that was the utmost
that he
love.
did what?
He knew they were going to one day be super valuable.
Really?
but he was just passionate. Honestly, he loved the cars. And really, if you look back at sort of his decisions, I mean, his financial decisions of buying cars and selling cars was not great. He loved the cars. And if you go back, I mean, he's the one that really took it into a different level. He moved in, I think it was 76 or 77 to Palm Beach, Florida, to Palm Beach Gardens, North Palm Beach, where I was born.
Why?
It's sort of funny. I think my grandfather was, because he had worked so hard, he had suffered some major injuries. At one point, he tried to actually pick up an engine block and broke his back. And they needed to get out of the cold climate. And it was, I think it was L.A. or South Florida.
Yeah.
And South Florida was the spot. And my father opened up basically a warehouse in North Palm Beach area, and he started servicing the same cars in Palm Beach.
Okay. So they came down here. So your grandfather and your father are here now.
Yes.
Okay. And how did it go here? I mean, you got a lot more access to people who are spending the kind of money that...
It was totally different world. Palm Beach Island today is this prestigious, I think per capita, it's one of the most incredible zip codes in the world. But then, my father probably was servicing hundreds of Rolls Royces a year, buying and selling Rolls Royces. Jaguars, Rolls Royce, Mercedes, Ferrari, Lamborghini.
These are cars that are obviously out of warranty. They're already vintage
and
for that time.
And then, the warranty, the concept of warranty in the 70s and 80s was like 12 months, 6 months. It wasn't, Lamborghini even was not standing behind their cars like you would think they would. And that's really, I would say, where my dad became so recognized. It was probably around 82, 83. Lamborghini had really taken off with the Countach, and it became the poster car.
Yeah.
And he basically made some great relationships. Imagine he was buying parts from the factory before they really had... at that time, probably in the 80s, they had 8 dealers in the U.S., maybe 9. So he had a great relationship with the factory. Through the distributor, who was a gentleman by the name of Joe Nastasi. He became an authorized service point, and he was actually selling cars and servicing cars. But it was in this probably 10,000 square foot warehouse that was next to a cow pasture, which is sort of funny to think, because now when you think of North Palm Beach and Palm Beach Gardens, no, it's all built up.
Sure.
And he was just a hardworking guy. He didn't have any employees. He worked 7 days a week.
Your grandfather was retired at this point?
My grandfather was retired at this point, and my father became probably the best Lamborghini tech in the U.S. Problem-solving Countach issues, problem-solving all of these issues. And here I am. I come along, and I grew up around all this.
So was the business that you grew up alongside a combination of servicing vehicles and buying, fixing, and selling?
Yes.
That was the two?
Yes, that was the two. And really, I would say and this is an interesting part of my career, I watched my dad. My dad always told me as a kid growing up, KISS, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
And he had the opportunity numerous times to build a dealership, or, Lamborghini went to him and would you like to actually build a world-class store? And people came to him, hey, we'll invest in you. And my dad, no. He didn't want employees. He didn't trust anyone.
Sorry, he never had any employees ever?
0 employees. I think at one point he had a helper.
Okay, sorry. So I want to dig into this a little bit.
Yes.
So you're growing up, you're seeing your dad, basically slaving away. It's hard to call it slaving but he's doing what he loves.
He's doing what he loves,
Right.
but he worked very hard. There's no question I saw him struggle. And that was, at moments growing up, I always thought I love this. I could be a mechanic, but I also was like, man, he works like a dog. He's 7 days a week. There's no vacations. I had never traveled outside of Florida until I was probably 15, 16.
Yeah.
He was working.
He wouldn't take a day off.
And I saw
sorry, before you, I apologize.
Yeah.
Growing up, seeing that, what kind of an influence? Obviously it it has a positive influence in terms of instilling work ethic. But at the same time, you know, you're growing up now in a more modern time where there's something to be said for balance, right? So
Oh my God.
are you advising your dad at some point, saying, Dad, like, listen, like, you got to slow down?
We would yell at him, and when I started to, I would say, work for him, and this is probably
How old were you when you started work for him?
probably like 8 or 9. I started to clean cars.
Sorry, you were 8 or 9 years old?
Yeah.
I know what 8 or 9 year olds look like. I have an 8 and a 10-year-old.
So 8 or 9, I used to go with him weekends and summers. I would clean cars, sweep floors, clean his shop. And his shop is a concrete block. I mean, it's nothing fancy.
And he would go to work by himself.
He would go work by
He would
himself.
just work on these cars alone.
Yes.
All right.
And I was there to help out in any way I could. So, you know, it was very fun for me because the most exciting part, and I will say the probably the biggest catalyst of the reason why I am where I am today was meeting all his clients.
Okay, hold on a sec. I want to get into the clients in a second.
Yes.
Do you have siblings?
No.
You're an only child.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's like it's almost it's really heartwarming, you know, because when you think of a man who, you know, his trade was passed down to him from his father, and you know he learned it, and you know when his son is kind of old enough to hold a mop and a bucket or whatever you were cleaning over there, you know, and then he brings you in at the age of 8 or 9. I'm just trying to paint this picture for everybody to understand, where he's by himself, never had an employee. Basically, you were his first employee.
And you know,
you were his first and only employee.
I was the first and only. And you know what's the funny part is that, and give you a context now. So back up, I'm 5 years old.
Yeah.
I'm a very shy kid, very sort of meek. I was always shorter and smaller, so I was sort of made fun of a little bit. And I walk into school, my father's dropping me off. And cool part was my dad would always drop me off in these incredible cars.
Sure. Sorry, whose cars are they?
So they're clients' cars. So
Clients didn't
there's
mind?
clients' cars that he's test driving.
Got
so
it.
it's like, test driving, I'm going to drop you off at school. And he wore this uniform, you're going to laugh, that looked like a garbage man. And it was this classic.
It was a mechanic's uniform.
Correct. And I couldn't tell him that he looked like garbage man. So I would actually tell him, no, drop me off over there. Like, I don't want my friends.
Even though you were in like a Ferrari or something.
Yes, because my friends would make fun of me. The kids would make fun of me. So there's this blue collar worker here that I was like embarrassed of at that time, saying, oh my God, like, no, Dad, you stay over here. Like, I'm this little brat.
Did he figure out why?
He figured out. He figured out very quickly.
What did he say to you?
He changed his uniform.
Really?
He changed his uniform because I think he felt bad.
Really?
But it was one of those things that when we talk about some of the stories of actually one of the reasons why I wear a t-shirt and jeans every day now, because I realize like those things aren't important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but as a young kid, meeting his clients who are flashy and all these different things, it was this weird dichotomy of the two lives.
Right.
You know, we're around, you know, people that are driving Rolls Royces, and, you know, we live in a very modest house, and he's a hardworking guy. So it was almost confusing for me as a young kid as well. And it's funny because I didn't realize or appreciate his hard work until much later. I sort of resented it.
You resented it because of the time he spent?
Yes.
I want to point something out
Yep.
before we continue.
Yep.
You know, being someone who I was born, like my parents immigrated, and I was actually born in Ukraine, and we immigrated here.
Yep.
And, you know, when I speak with people, and when you first hear that, oh, like you're third generation in this business, a lot of people will have a preconceived notion, and I would have had a preconceived notion if it was me 10 years ago.
Yes.
Before I maybe 20 years ago, before
Yep.
I gained more experience in life.
Yes.
People would have the preconceived notion, and I'm sure you get this. I don't want to go too far off topic, so I want to make this quick, but I'm sure you get it when people talk about your story and they talk about that you're third generation in the automotive industry. They think that this was handed to you.
Oh.
But but I want people who are listening to understand that just because, you know, that's the case where you might meet someone and you might think, oh, they're so lucky that they had this and this. But you clearly took a one-man mechanic shop and like, you know, we're going to take a tour of your place afterwards to what this is.
Yeah.
I can say you actually did start from nothing. Not nothing. You started from mentally from a place where I think that's your advantage is what your father and grandfather gave you.
Huge. And I would say the biggest gift today and what we've built our entire business around, and it's been a struggle because I can tell you, as I became the face of the company, which wasn't always my goal. I always wanted the brand to be...
Sorry, you became the company. Not the, when you say the face of the company, you can't compare, and with all respect to your dad,
of course.
You can't compare his one-man mechanic shop.
No, I mean, and what I mean is the face of Curated.
Okay.
Once I became the face of Curated in many ways, I always wanted Curated, the brand, to be way more important than I was. And over time, through social media, I became the face of Curated. I did get a lot of banter or chatter that said, "Oh yeah, you're so lucky. You're rich kid." And no, that's not this. That's not the story.
So, but hold on a second. Number one, people are talking from their own insecurities.
Yes,
that they're not as accomplished as they would like to be, and they look at you and say, "Oh,
of course,
he didn't." It's because this was handed to him.
Yes.
So that's one thing, and the second thing, they're just ignorant. They don't know.
Of course,
they don't know this story.
No, and I would say the biggest gift I received from a young boy working at my dad's shop was something that I resented for way too long until a couple years ago. Was my dad was very difficult and he's very OCD and he was on me. Like my tools weren't straight. That was not correct. I did something that was not right. We would go to car shows and he would destroy other people's cars. You see that? That's wrong. You see that stitching is incorrect. You see that trim around the windshield? That's not original. The tires. And it would drive me crazy. And I'd be like, Dad, like, who cares? Like, who cares about all these details? And he would get mad at me. Like, no, I care. And we'd be doing something, and I'd be, he painted himself. He's an incredible painter. And I'd be working on some, like, trim on a car, and I'd prep everything for painting. So I'd tape these things off. And he'd come with me, sometimes with a magnifying glass, and see that line? It's not perfect. When I paint that line's going to be off. What are you doing? And and I was like, this guy's nuts. Like, this
How
guy's
old were you?
crazy. At this point, probably teens. In my teens. I was probably 14, 15.
John, I want to say from this conversation, what I can tell you is that you are successful largely in part to being your father's son. Because when people no, but it's true, right?
1,000%.
Yeah, because
there's no question.
Because and that's what people don't see in this business. Like, you walk through your showroom and you've got, we're going to look afterwards. I mean, it's mind-blowing what you've got on this showroom floor. But I'm sure that these cars you didn't purchase in this condition. So this attention to detail that was instilled in you as a teenager, that's why people buy from you, because they know, not because they know the story, but because they know that when they get a car from you, this car is restored as if it was from the factory 30, 40 years ago.
Yes. And he instilled that in me, and I wouldn't be where I am today without that. And without the knowledge of the details. When we first started Curated, I was, and I won't get too far into the story, but I would have collectors. I had no business at the time, and I would have collectors from around the world say, hey, I can't reach your dad. Can you go inspect a car for me? And within 10 minutes, 5 feet away, I can look at a Countach or a Diablo or an F40 and say, that's wrong, that's not correct. There's paintwork there, that interior's been redone, and that was from my dad. So, and it did drive me crazy for years, and it was about 7, 8 years ago where I realized, oh my God, like, what a wealth of knowledge. Now, the pivot for me was my dad never really cared about the history of the cars. Like, he didn't care if someone was a famous owner. He didn't care if it was a special color. He was focused on the OCD traits, like his OCD nature of that needs to be perfect. And for me, it was the history that I fell in love with. Oh, Reggie Jackson had a car collection. Nicolas Cage bought a Lamborghini Miura. It was all these details. And I was like, in my head, I was reading the magazines and these old classifieds and like tracking where the cars would go. And very weird to say this, but and I've talked about this while other kids were like playing soccer playing baseball, going to baseball games with their dad, I was studying these details like this nerd. Like, oh, Dad, did you see this? And he's like,
And that added value. That history of the car added massive value.
huge.
On that note,
Huge.
I want to take a little bit of a tangent because
Yes.
you just reminded me of a story. You've got the Countach from Wolf of Wall Street,
Yes.
right?
Which,
It was the movie car.
the movie car.
It wasn't Jordan's actual car.
Not Jordan's actual car. And the coolest part of that actual car is I didn't realize it until we purchased it and until we jumped into its history.
Yeah.
We had chased it. We really have done a great job of attracting really passionate people to our business.
Yeah.
Guys that believe in our mantra, our mission statement. And a young guy, Steven, that works with us, chased it for like years, maybe 6-7 years. And we had been researching its history, and it's just it's way more than a car. It's a piece of art. It really is.
It is, yeah.
You think of the impact it's had on generations.
The Countach in general.
It almost made
Absolutely.
the Countach cool again. It almost was like,
Well, they brought it back.
yes.
And now it's like millions of dollars for a new one.
It's a $3 million plus.
Crazy.
So I think it reminded people, and the Countach is so important to me, and I think to a generation because, we've sold over 100 Countaches. It's a big part of our business. It's a big part
Wow.
of growing up. I grew up around Countaches. It was what my dad was, best, most focused in. And I look at the Countach as the ultimate embodiment of aspiration. It's like this object that if you had it on your wall and you were this broke kid, one day I'm going to get that. And I can't tell you how many collectors I meet today, even if they don't own a Countach, that say, man, I saw a Countach in 1988 and it changed my world. I realized that one day, how was I going to obtain this? One of my best clients, he had seen a Countach, I forget where it was, and he was freaking out, and his dad goes, "You're never going to get that. Like, stop. That's for rich people." He's like, "No, Dad. One day I'm going to focus. I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to get that." Today he actually owns multiple Countaches, and he owns a ton of other great cars, Ferrari F40s, and all these iconic cars. But it was the Countach for him that changed his life.
How does that thing drive?
It's a beast. I mean, it's the most masculine, insane car. It's not for everyone. It is just completely absurd. I mean, it's an event every time you take it out.
It's not a daily driver by any
It's
means.
not a daily driver. I love it, and I think they've gotten a bad reputation over time because people think you could just jump in it like a Porsche 911 and go to get groceries. It's not. You prepare for it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you check your fluids, you check everything. You know where you're going, okay? It's a cool day. The AC's got, everything has to be serviced. The AC has to be working. But when you're on the highway, I mean, to this day, I'm never jaded. I still get chills driving one. There's nothing like it. But back to the Wolf of Wall Street car. During the research and getting it and us really saying, okay, this car is now a piece of art. It's not a car anymore. I realized that this car was a car that my dad was servicing. He sold, and I actually washed it as a kid.
The actual car?
The actual car.
Wow.
So talk about full circle. I mean, I remember it actually has paintwork to one side because I remember my dad actually had to fix it. There was some damage.
Wow.
So like,
How did it get in the movie? Do you know what the
this
history is?
crazy story, a guy bought it actually in 2004, 2005, this incredible guy, Joe, and he was really passionate and really a guy that, I mean, imagine he drove this car like 60,000 miles. It's one of the highest mileage Countaches in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
I would have normally never bought it. I mean, all of our stuff you'll see is like 500 miles, 2,000 original miles. I'm a stickler for very high quality. Again, it goes back to my dad's mentality of, perfect cars. And he'd put 65,000 miles, drove it around the country, showed it, shared it. And one day he gets a call from a production company. And they say, hey, we're looking for a white Countach 25th anniversary for this movie. And he was a little uncertain. He goes and reaches out to Steven, who now works for us, and says, hey, what do you think about this? I know your father owns a white Countach. Would he be interested in, they need a couple. And they're like, oh, no, we'd never put it in a movie. This guy's like, why not? And I don't think he realized the significance at the time. Like that transaction, I don't even think he realized what he was doing. It's one of 2 cars that were used in the movie.
Yeah.
Since we've done research, we realized that really sort of incredible. Martin Scorsese apparently hired an art director. His art director for the movie designed the damage of the other car.
So there was no real damage.
Yes. So there was 2 cars in the movie. The one car, they used a Ford Taurus to repeatedly hit it and crash it. So it's just
it was smashed by a Ford Taurus?
Smashed by a Ford Taurus over and over and over. And they kept hitting it, and the art director's like, no, I want it like the fender coming off. I want this damaged. So they destroyed this car, but what they did was they created this iconic piece of history now that if you've seen the movie and then you see the wrecked car, you're like, that's the car from the movie.
Do you happen to know what Jordan was actually driving?
I think it was a Mercedes.
It was a 500 SL.
Yes.
Do you know how I know?
Yeah, how do you know?
I had lunch with Jordan.
No way.
Yeah, I had lunch with Jordan years ago. Maybe
that's
like
so funny.
7 years ago, coincidentally.
Okay. That's so funny.
I had a company, and we had an office in LA, and I was there, and a mutual friend of ours, who I actually spoke with yesterday, he said, hey, Gary, I'm going to lunch with my buddy Jordan. You want to come with us? And I didn't know who he was talking about. I was like, okay, cool.
Dude,
and we sit
so
down
cool.
at Jordan Belfort. I'm like, wow.
You're the guy.
And we
What a
were
small
just
world.
talking, and I
Wow.
had to ask him, I'm like, Jordan, did you really have a white Countach, and did you completely destroy it? He goes, no. It was a 500 SL that I completely destroyed. But that story with the Quaaludes and everything, that's actually
It's
true.
real.
Jordan's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that actually
Yeah.
happened. Okay. Let's jump. I want to go
Yes.
back. Okay, so I want to go back to it's easy to go on these tangents when talking about cars because I mean I love cars.
Yes.
I don't have nearly the degree of knowledge that you do on the vintage cars, but I love cars nonetheless. So I'm trying to understand. So you're growing up. It's a very unique situation that you're growing up in. You've got a father who's super passionate. Do you feel he was kind of grooming you to succeed him in this business, or did he want you to be also like a lawyer? Or a
No,
doctor?
he didn't want me. I really wanted to. So meeting his clients, all of these really interesting people would come in, and of course, if you own a Lamborghini Countach in that period, you were probably a really eccentric, interesting person.
Yeah.
And I would meet the most incredible people from around the world. And I was really inspired. That was what.
Sorry, how old again were you when you were born here?
I was born
in Palm
here.
Beach. Okay.
Palm Beach Gardens Hospital.
Yeah.
So let's call it 8 to 17 years old. I worked at my dad's every summer, every weekend. And eventually I was actually doing some service work. I was changing exhausts and doing things like that. He was definitely grooming me to be a mechanic.
A mechanic.
But at the time, what was happening was I was meeting all of his incredible clients, who were Fortune 500 CEOs, who were, all these important people from all walks of life.
Who were very different than your dad.
Man,
From a I don't know how do you politely say it. I mean, it's your dad's
my
like,
dad is brick and mortar.
Yeah.
It's if I see it, I believe it.
Yeah.
Where I'm the exact opposite. Not a dreamer, not a risk taker.
He wasn't the dreamer.
He was not a dreamer.
But
He
you're
was
the
not a risk-
visionary.
Oh my God, I am. He thinks my head is in the clouds. I mean, until recently, he was scared of every decision I made.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Thought I was nuts.
My dad was the same way. I think it's a common thing when you have a dad who comes from this like modest background, working
Yes.
really hard, and then they come to kind of to the new country, and then all of a sudden the son grows up in this environment of capitalism, and it's a contrast between the two, but I understand.
Huge. And I think it was, so I was going to an art school.
Yeah.
I was actually a classically trained pianist.
Oh wow.
And my mom was.
Was that your dad doing that? Your mom
No,
and dad saying you had to be a
that's
pianist?
my mom, and my mom was very much pushing me to just dream and think big and think outside of the box. And what was cool about the art school, it was called Dreyfus School of the Arts, famous school actually today in West Palm, was, I'll never forget this. I'm sitting in a class, I was like 12 years old, and a teacher came up and said, hey, today we're going to talk about the word paradigm, a different way of seeing something. And it was ingrained into me that that was important of the arts. Like, how do you become an artist, or how do you grow as an artist? It's like just taking something in a different way to see it. And one of the things my mom had told me that, like, don't be afraid. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just do something a little bit different or a little bit better. And I was struggling with this concept of, like, I'm not a mechanic. Like, that wasn't my dream. And I'm meeting all these, like, incredibly successful, passionate people. And then one day, I'll never forget, I'm one of his clients had just bought a brand new Ferrari Enzo. He brought it to my dad for some service work. And it was this young guy. He was probably like 40 years old, super cool. And he was taking this eyeglass franchise and basically franchising it all over the U.S. And he was talking to me about all these things. He was like, hey, do you want to go for a ride in the car? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And I'm sitting in this car and I'm hearing him talk about his business. And I was like, the marketing aspects and how he's marketing it and talking to a PR firm. And it was like a light switch went off. And I'll never forget that moment and a few other moments like that inspired me to say, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur and I just want to think differently. I don't want to think brick and mortar. I want to think, this aspirational entrepreneur spirit. I wanted to just sort of succeed.
Do you make the connection between your dad moving to Palm Beach, your dad being in this business, servicing the vehicles of these mega successful people? Do you in your mind connect the dots and say it's because I had access to these people and it's because I was in those, not even you weren't in those circles, you simply had access and you were charismatic enough as a kid, as a young man so did you ever think but your dad he didn't do it on purpose, did he?
No. I mean, listen, if you looking back on my life now, everything had to happen for me to be where I am today.
Right.
I mean, all of those dots had to connect. And for me to meet those people through my dad's shop, they'd hang out, they'd bring lunch, they would talk to me. And
why did they talk to you? John, why you, like, what was it about you?
I was a sponge. I was a sponge. I mean, I was always very shy. And I just wanted to learn. I was never afraid to ask questions.
Where did this come from?
Probably from my mom. And I would say also, you're gonna laugh, like, probably from this mindset of wanting those cars one day. I wanted to own those cars. 1994, I got a ride in a purple Diablo SE30. A gentleman by the name from Canada, Mr. Marcus. I'll never forget this. We're in Palm Beach at the big Ferrari show, Cavallino, and he pulls up and he's in this purple Diablo. And it was insane. I mean, no one spec'd cars then in purple metallic. It wasn't a thing. And I'm like, I gotta own that one day. Like, how am I gonna own that? Like, I have to. He gives me a ride and it changed my world. And I was like,
how old are you?
I'm 11 years old.
So you're in this, like, incredible crossroads. And I really want to point out how important it is. I really want to point out how important it is for us to find ourselves and for our children in these situations that foster this kind of success, that foster this, like, starting on this path. So you are in a place where you've got influence you've got this, like, hard work influence, this, like, massive work ethic, and then you've got the other side of that, which is, people who you're meeting who are doing these incredible things. And then you've got this kind of tangible goal, seeing these vehicles and saying, I want to buy, I want to own this. So it's being surrounded by all these things.
There's no question. And I would say the dichotomy, the exact opposite is my dad telling me, well, work hard and in 50 years you can retire, and live a decent life. My dad never charged people the right way. If he was selling cars, he would, he didn't care. He's like, throw me whatever you think is fair.
What was the evolution? So, sorry, did you go back? Yeah, I apologize.
And then my mom saying, anything is possible. Dream big.
Wow.
And me witnessing my dad's clients investing in real estate and doing these deals. It was both factors, the hard work and the dreaming, that came together. And you're 1,000% right. I think it's so important to expose that to kids. It happened to me by accident.
Yeah.
Pure accident.
Yeah. Oh, I would call it fate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you ever at odds with your dad? because your dad was like,
We-
what are you doing? Why are you going and talking to this guy? Like,
we didn't
keep
talk
working hard.
we didn't talk when I first. So I moved out at 18, and when
Because you were at odds with him.
Yes, and when I first moved out, we butt heads, I think, about everything imaginable. I mean, we had a terrible relationship for a few years. My parents went through a very bad divorce because my dad was OCD, and looking back, it was a disaster. I mean, it truly was. But if they hadn't gotten divorced, I wouldn't become the man I am today.
How's that?
I wouldn't have been forced into the world to say, okay, now I have to do this on my own. I have to figure out my own way. There was this anger inside of me as well that was so intrinsic to literally getting kicked in the butt and saying, okay, I don't care if I'm homeless. I'm going to figure this out. And not having the influence of my parents, while it hurt me in the short term, in the long term, it was really important. I mean, I probably wish I hadn't gone through that phase, but for me to become a man, it was instrumental.
At what point in your life did you realize no one was coming to save you? Was it a point? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, there's many.
Because I remember mine, yeah. But do you
Yeah,
remember yours?
there's many. So I move out. I start promoting, and I don't know if you want to take this. This is the pivot.
I want to understand the car event in Palm Beach.
Yeah. So.
Because sorry, that happened in 2005. You were a kid.
Correct. So 2004, real estate market is booming. 2005, real estate market is booming. And I see all these real estate millionaires being born, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to figure out. One, I'm 18 years old.
You're 18.
So
yeah.
so I wanna be around pretty girls and cool things.
Sure.
So one, how do I get into nightclubs? Okay. And two, how do I get involved in this real estate thing? And I had no clue. I had zero clue. I drop out of. I was in an advanced master's in business at a local school. It was Harriet J. Wilkes Honors College, and I did not see my future in school, which I do regret not finishing.
So you didn't finish kind of your like.
No, I dropped out. I had started going to nightclubs.
You shouldn't regret it. I think you're good.
Thank you. I started going to nightclubs or trying to get into nightclubs. It's something you do as an 18-year-old. I had never drank. I'd never tried drugs. I'd never been around any of these things.
Yeah.
In high school, I was this sort of more reserved kid. My parents were very strict. So I'm seeing all these things, and I'm seeing these, promoters and guys getting into nightclubs. I couldn't get in. And I met a few of the promoters, and I met this incredible couple who one is a person I work with today, Shamin Abbas. She's an incredible PR agent. She works with Ferrari. She has this incredible car event, ironically enough. And I'm this, scrawny kid, and I organize a meeting with her, and I'm in this terrible suit, and I organize this meeting, and she's like, "Who is this person?" I'm, meeting promoters to put me with her, and I tell her, I said, "Hey, I want to host events at your nightclub." And she had the hottest nightclub in Palm Beach at the time. It was called Resort. And it was a famous nightclub actually out of the Hamptons that had also opened in Palm Beach. And it was really, I would say my pure interest at the time was trying to make money and also get into the club.
Sure.
And I told her, I said, no, I've got a ton of background in the car world, and I want to do these car events at your nightclub. I can bring Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and here I am.
Where were you going to get the cars?
Here I am. I'm this nerd online, and I'm talking on all these forums to all of these car owners from around the world, and they don't know who I am. I'm behind this user handle, and but I was able to talk the talk because I was around the cars. So I'm telling her, I'm going to get all these Ferraris, I'm going to get all these Lamborghinis. We're going to do this party called the Jet Set Party at your nightclub. It's going to be incredible. So I'm meeting with her. I'm trying to do this. And at the same time, I'm trying to meet with all of these other nightclubs to become a promoter. So I start, promoting nightclubs. I'm putting flyers on people's cars. I'm doing whatever. And I remember I made my first $200-300 and it was like, I hit the lotto. It was like, oh my God, I can eat. And
this was at a time where you were still kind of not talking to your dad.
I was
and your mom.
I was on a very bad relationship with my parents. Very
and they were
limited.
going through the divorce.
They were going through the divorce. And I had this crazy idea of literally cold calling. And to this day, I don't know how I did it because I know how insecure I was and nervous I was at the time. Today, I believe in cold calling people, and it never hurts to ask.
You're in a different
Yes.
position, situation.
I cold call the most significant real estate company at the time, Barclays International Realty, and I try to set up a meeting. And I said, I want to meet with the owner, Mr. Robert Weiner, because I want to help him market his $1 million properties. And I'm not even a real promoter. I mean, let's face it. I was throwing, flyers on people's cars.
All right.
And I go to him and I get the meeting. Still don't know how. And I walk into his office, and here I am chewing gum, and I am like shaking. And I said, hi, Mr. Weiner, and he just looks at me and he's like, "Are you chewing gum?" Yeah, why? He's like, "Spit it out, come on, right now." Oh my God, like on your hand? Like, let me spit it out. So that's how the meeting started. And he's like, "So why are you here?" And I tell him, I said, I would. I think
he liked you right away. There was something. There was something, yeah.
And I said, I'm here because I really feel that you could market your multi-million-dollar properties to a different generation of clients. These nightclubs are selling these massive tables. There's a lot of money being spent at the nightclubs. There's a younger generation in the nightclubs. I would love to help you market these properties. And you could see he's like hemming and hawing. And I don't know what it was I just said. And mind you, at this point, I did not want to be in the car world. I want to make that very clear. I wanted to be doing something else. And I said, but I can do this really incredible supercar event, and I can bring these Ferraris and Lamborghinis. And I go, oh, by the way, I know a client of yours. He lives in South Ocean, and this is his name. And it stopped. The conversation stopped. And it was one of my dad's clients who had just purchased a home from Robert Weiner at some point. Mind you, I didn't even know the client that well. And
I love the way you're leveraging basically every asset you have.
You have no idea. And that leverage becomes almost contagious.
That's the superpower, right? That's the secret. That's the value I'm trying to pull out. And people, it's amazing. Sorry, I'm gonna
let's
just pause because I want to jump back into this. But this is something that I'm actually at odds with my wife. No, it's true. And I'll give you an example. Like you know what she does. Like she's an influencer and she does all this stuff, and she will not think that what she has, like let's say I could take a picture of her and she'll be like, no, this is all, it's worthless. And I'll take that picture, I'll force her, I'll take the picture, we'll put it up. It'll get 100,000 likes, it'll gain 3,000 followers, and that drives the needle on the business. But my point is that she's not of that mindset of, she's much more now of I'm going to pull out every asset I have to push myself forward. You were doing it naturally at a young age. You literally met this guy in passing, and you drop his name at Barclays, and now tell me what happened, because I want to pull that lesson out.
I want to also preface this. I don't do that anymore unless it's real. It's it has to be authentic today. But
it was real. No, but you knew the guy.
It was fringes. It was.
But if he would have, if this guy,
he would have known me.
If Mr. Weiner, so then it was real.
Yes.
Right. You made an impression on him.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I start throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks in this meeting, and I'm telling him I can get 50 supercars, and I can get all these guys.
You had no way.
And I tell him,
but you didn't know you could get 50 supercars.
No idea. I've never done an event at this point.
Good for you.
And I say, this was the turning point I see where it clicked. I said, think about it. If someone's spending $500,000 on a car, they are pre-qualified to buy this house.
And did he agree?
I don't even know where I got that word, honestly, at the
Good
time.
For you.
I will tell you that.
Pre-qualified. That's a good one.
It's a good one. And he's like, wow, you're right. So he looks at me and he goes, all right, kid, you got this house. And it was I'll never forget this, it was a $20 or $30 million home.
Wow.
I could actually
Back
pull
then.
up then, and I could pull up the listing as well. It was this insane home that he had available. And he said, okay, you got this house, this date, go run with it.
Sorry, so the concept is you're throwing the event in the house.
I'm throwing the event at the house. I'm bringing these supercar owners. We're going to have this supercar show, Palm Beach Supercar Weekend, at this house. He's going to have pre-qualified buyers. We're going to take photos. It's going to get a ton of press, and this thing's going to explode. That's the way I pitched it. And he's like, done. It's yours. He's like, what do you think the costs are? And I had no idea. And he goes, I think you could do this for $5,000. I was like, he's like, all right, go raise the $5,000. The house is yours. Whatever you need, let me know.
Sorry, go raise it. So he was telling you to pay for it.
Yeah. So
but what was your incentive then? Was he going to pay you a commission or?
I thought I was going to be able to make money somehow on either selling the house, a commission, getting in the door, selling tickets. I really didn't know how I was going to make money yet. I mean, for me, it was, okay, I got this thing. I've secured this. I can go out and get sponsors. I can go out and do all these things. I go out. I have a picture of the house, and it's funny because I was not great at Photoshop, but I had the basic skills to put together a flyer. And I think because I went to an art school, and this is super, super, super important in my career,
yeah.
I think I was groomed to have somewhat of a vision or like a look. I knew what I wanted, and I knew it had to, like, it couldn't be goofy. It had to be like fit luxury. It had to fit like something different. So I actually created this sponsorship deck, this flyer, and I took this thing and I milked it. I went out and I literally met with anyone I could. I'd walk into car dealerships. I went everywhere and pounded the pavement to the point where I probably looked so foolish at the time. I probably looked like I was 15 years old. I was 18. I lied to everyone about my age. I told everyone I was 24, 25. Where even today, sometimes I forget how old I am because I lied about my age for so long. And I was pounding the pavement. And I created this program where I was going to sell tickets and I was going to sell sponsorships. And it's funny because Barclays was so well known at the time that when I would tell people what I was doing, people were like, yeah, okay, kid. And they'd go call Robert. And they'd call the president of Barclays. Like, is this really happening? And he said, oh, yeah, the kid's amazing.
Okay.
So I did not raise the full $5,000. Now, at this time, I probably had $500 in my bank account. I was living in the dorm at this school in Jupiter. And I literally did not know how I was going to eat next. I was trying to figure it out. My parents were going through this divorce. I wanted to be on my own. So I was hustling. They wanted me to stay in school. I was trying to figure it out. The weekly promotions at the nightclub were helping me. But I really did not know the next step. I think I raised $3,000 or $4,000 through sponsorships. Bremen Palm Beach was a sponsor, which ironically they're across the street now.
Yeah.
They were a sponsor. There were a few other people that sponsored this event. That felt like I hit the lotto. That first money in felt like $1 million. And I was calling friends. Hassan Pierre, he's a famous fashion designer now, really connected guy. I knew him from the nightclub world. He was probably 16 at the time. and I got him to help me get a champagne sponsor, and he was going to do this fashion show. And I started promoting this thing on Ferrari Chat, which is now a very large Ferrari community. And it was this forum I used to use. No one knew I was 18 years old. People thought I was like some car connoisseur or this, historian. And I'm on there, putting these flyers up. And within like 2-3 weeks, this thing became a massive success. We had 30 cars signed up. We had major guys. If you went down the list of people, it was like these really interesting collectors from all over. And this thing was snowballing into something incredible.
How many people attended the event?
So here's the I would say the big catalyst for me. And we talk about utilizing assets you have or leveraging. About a month before the event, Robert calls me in his office and he goes, we're getting on the phone with Donald Trump right now.
Stop.
And Donald Trump, I forget if it was Mar-a-Lago or one of the famous estates.
How far into this are you chronologically? So from the day that you had that first meeting,
we're talking a few months.
A couple of months.
Yes.
He calls you.
He
Before
calls
the
me
events.
in.
So how,
This
and
was
how,
in November.
how
The event was in December. I'll never forget.
So the event's, it's 2 months in, 2 months
Yes.
left to go.
Yes.
How many people did you? I'm trying to
I
understand.
had about 30 cars signed up.
and how many
I
people
had,
attending?
let's say 40, 50 people.
Okay. And they were and you were charging each one
I
of
was
them.
charging each one. I don't remember the exact amount. I was not at break even. I was not making money yet. And that's an important thing to remember, because my dad said something to me the day before the event that'll stick with me for the rest of my life. And it was something, I'll just say it. He said to me, "Hey, I know you haven't sold the tickets you want. I know you don't have the money. I know this thing's not going to be a success. If you want, I'll buy the rest of the tickets." And that was such like a gut punch that I know to this day he didn't.
It was coming from a good place, I think. He was trying to bail you out.
It was coming from a place of fear, because he does not believe in dreaming or thinking big. So he's trying to bail me out, but I took it like I was angry. I was pissed.
Sure.
I was like, I'm gonna prove to you that I will be successful.
But in retrospect, did you understand that he was trying to help out?
No, and now I do.
Oh, now you
I
do.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry. Now I do. At the time, no. I was angry.
Yeah.
So going back, Robert calls me in his office.
Okay, Donald Trump, yes.
And he says, we're going to get him on the phone now. I forget if he gets him on the phone or how and he's like, "Donald, we have this insane event going on. Something South Ocean." That was the house. I think it was 2345 or something like the South Ocean. We got all these major car collectors. They all got $1 million cars. We got to get them to your new house. And
Sorry, his new... Oh, so for another event. He's trying to plan the
So,
second event.
Donald Trump had just purchased from Abe Gossman, the insurance mogul.
Yeah.
He had just purchased what was called the Gossman estate, and he was planning to put it on the market for the first time. He had refinished it. He was putting it on the market for like 110 or 115 million.
He didn't buy it for himself. He bought it as an investment, as a flip.
Correct. And it was going to be the largest real estate listing ever in the U.S. And I think they didn't know how to position it yet. They didn't know how to market it. And Robert goes, "This is going to put this home on the map. Let's bring these supercar guys. Let's do this big thing. Let's do a rally from one house to the other house. Let's blow this thing up." Donald was like, "I love it. Let's do it." And I'm like, here I am like, oh my God, what did I just get myself into? And at the time, listen, whatever your political beliefs are, or whatever you think of Donald Trump today, listen, Donald Trump was a brand in 2005. He was so well known. When people thought luxury, they thought Donald Trump. So I was like shaking. I'm like, oh my God, like this is going to be crazy. So we get down to the wire. We have this event. It's this huge success. All of the cars start at the first home. They all end up at Donald Trump's Gossman estate, and we announce to the press that this home is being on the market for 110 million or whatever it was. Donald shows up. He's in his red, I'll never forget this, red Ferrari F430 Spider, one of the first ones in the country. And I'm like, oh my God, there's Donald Trump. All of my clients are freaking out. Now, mind you, the event has not, I think at this point I've maybe made like $400, $500. And literally, I'm like, this, you can't pay for this. This is insane. And all the press is there. Palm Beach Daily News. Everyone's there.
Again, I'm a little confused. This is which event? This is the
This
same
is
event?
the Palm Beach Supercar Weekend. It's the same event.
This is the event from the first listing?
Yes.
From the first
and
house.
We had brought everyone from the first house to the second house. We did this drive through Palm Beach. All the cars show up. All the cars arrive.
Okay. Now I get it. Sorry.
And
okay.
everyone is just like, this is insane. Donald Trump gives everyone a private tour of the house. He's taking photos with me. And I'm going to tell you, like, whether that event was a success or not financially, or whether I even had the money to succeed from that, I took that photo and I took that press clipping and all the press clippings from that event, and I milked that for the next 6 to 12 months. I mean, the photo of me and Donald Trump standing outside the house with all the cars and the photos of him really put me on the map. Palm Beach is a very small community.
Yeah.
It is a town that's old guard. You're either in or you're not. And here I suddenly was, this mechanic's kid, that had no contacts. Now I was like in the scene. And it catapulted me. And what's funny is that first name, Palm Beach Supercar Weekend, which was this event, it catapulted me to immediately, within days after, I was planning the next Palm Beach Supercar Weekend. And that was a game changer for me. I was able to realize that I had created something out of thin air. It had value.
Out of thin air. Like, just hearing the story, completely from zero, like, really?
Zero. And this is probably the moment where I started to get into trouble because I started to think I could achieve way too much too soon. And this is something that I hope to tell my kids and share with people that, listen, there's no such thing as an overnight success. This is a marathon. It's not a race.
Sure.
And I had such big aspirations at that moment. Coming off this Donald Trump event, I thought I was going to be a millionaire in the next year or multimillionaire. I felt like I was, just signed a record deal.
Tell me what happened next. So you have all the press clippings. You have your picture with Donald Trump.
Yes.
You are now known in this local community, like very dense with wealth.
Yes.
Like probably the most dense on the planet.
Planet.
Forget about even the United States. Like on the planet.
Yes.
Palm Beach.
And I can walk into any restaurant and I can tell restaurants and nightclubs, hey, do you want me to promote a Ferrari event? Do you want me to promote a Lamborghini event? So right away, all these things start bringing in money.
Yeah. So money how? What was the revenue model for you?
We're not talking big money. We're talking $1,000, $500.
It's relative.
$2,000 an event.
You're an 18-year-old kid. I mean, it's relative.
It's huge. It was huge. It was life-changing.
So, okay. I'm trying to understand where you went from here. You're 18 years old. What was the next step?
So the next step was planning the second Palm Beach Supercar Weekend. And I had started meeting a lot of great guys because of the first event, because of the photos. I met all these guys in the exotic car community. And there's something interesting about the Ferrari world. Once you're in and you can talk the talk and you're passionate, you open the doors it opened doors at such a high level for me that I could have never had been sort of, it was like I became like, it was like a brotherhood to these car collectors.
I understand. So you've built out this personal network.
Yes.
And they're all accomplished people.
Yes.
High net worth.
And
it's all about the cars.
All about the cars.
How did you then create a business out of this?
So overnight, I'm planning this second event. I'm raising sponsorship dollars.
Same model. You're doing the same model.
Major car show. Now I'm moving the car show to 2 or 3 days. I'm doing an event at a mansion. I'm doing an event at Palm Beach Polo. And I'm bringing in people now from all over the country, sponsors, brands. I get my first check, and I don't remember the exact amount. I know it was probably $30,000 or $40,000, and it was a gentleman by the name who became this incredible mentor, became one of my first angel investors, and his name was Jan Otto, and he was starting this event. He was starting a car club called Supercar Life.
Yeah.
And he flies into Palm Beach. He sets up a meeting with me, and he basically says, hey, I want to be your title sponsor for the next event. This first event looked insane. Now, he has no idea that I did this thing on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
And he says...
Why would he, right?
Correct.
Good for you.
Yeah, and he says, I want to be your title sponsor. So that was like such a big ego boost for me to say, okay, this is real.
How much was that deal?
It was $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000. It was insane.
From nothing. I love it.
From nothing. I went out and I immediately went and I put a down payment on a condo and I went and rented a Lamborghini Gallardo.
Okay.
I thought I was a celebrity. I mean, I really thought, I've got a condo on the water in West Palm Beach. I've got this Lamborghini Gallardo. It's from a very good friend of mine, which is an incredible story of vindication as well, because I blew up the car. But I rent...
So you literally, the car exploded?
Yes, it exploded. So I rent this car with the intention, I say, hey, I'm making this money. I'm going to pay it off or I'm going to finance it. Just give me a couple months. I'm going to try to help you rent this car out. We're going to figure something out. I mean, total hustle move.
Yeah.
Like total hustler. And here I am in Palm Beach. I'm 19 years old, driving around a yellow Lamborghini Gallardo, which was brand new at the time, basically. And I've got a condo on the water with zero furniture. I couldn't afford to furnish it. and thinking I was God's gift to this earth. I was dressing a certain way. I was very tacky. I was very flashy. And I immediately realized the concept of reaching out to celebrities, getting celebrities involved. I understood that, and it was a very important moment in my career to understand the leveraging and branding. So any way I could get major brands from the automotive world or celebs from the automotive world to tie into the event, I knew it was going to be a success for me.
Hold on a sec, John, sorry, I apologize.
Yes.
What was going on with your dad?
Oof.
I need to, because you're taking off right now, and
Yes.
I get it. I feel your excitement, but I want to know what's going on back at home with
Terrible.
your dad. So you hold on a second. So you're succeeding.
Yes.
So he offered to buy out those tickets.
Yes.
You took that in a very
Yes.
kind of like negative way.
Yes.
The event then, Donald Trump got involved. So did you go back to your dad and be like, hey, what's up? Like, look what happened.
My parents thought I lost my mind.
How?
They were
What do you mean?
they're like, what are you doing? Like, are you crazy?
Why is this still a negative thing if you had such success?
They were really concerned. I mean, my dad is afraid of everything. So out of fear, I believe there's two emotions in this world, love and fear. Probably out of both, he was very scared for me. He's like, you're partying, you're going to these nightclubs.
Oh, so he was concerned that you were going to get involved with like drugs and
Yes.
alcohol and stuff.
And
I mean, that's a legit concern as a dad.
of course, and they were worried how I was spending money. I mean, I was
Legit?
Yes. And they didn't understand the concept. I mean, my grandfather was still alive at the time, and when I was trying to tell him what I was doing with car shows, he couldn't understand.
It's too foreign.
It's
This
way
type
too-
of the whole media event,
Yes.
everything, it's too foreign.
And it was too foreign. Now, this was in the middle of my parents' divorce, so things were getting very bad. They were in court. We're talking, I'm not going to bring their baggage into this, but I'm in court testifying against both sides. I mean, just
Oh my God.
really, really nasty stuff.
How did you look? You're in the middle of this, like obviously super exciting and super stressful kind of thing with work, right? Because you're young, you're a teenager,
Yes.
right? And at the same time, you're dealing with this like family drama, this family
Yes.
trauma. How are you juggling both?
So I'm not. At that moment, I was not.
You
I
ignored
was
your
living
family?
on credit cards that somehow God's gift or whatever, maybe curse. Somehow at 19, I was able to get credit cards in my name for incredible balances. We're talking 5-10 grand, which was like hitting the lotto at that age. So
Yeah.
I'm living on credit cards. I'm trying to figure it out, and I would say that I exposed myself at that moment because I was vulnerable. I exposed myself to some really dark things and dark people. Where I had met some people that saw my rising fame and just wanted to jump into
Sure.
the gravy train or whatever it
Sure.
was, and I started hanging around with the wrong people. I mean, we're talking just bad people, and that is where I would say I lost myself, or the kid that was so humble and the kid that was this sweet classical piano player. I lost myself at that moment. I started doing drugs. I was partying all the time. I was out all the time. I was, if there is ever a concept of fake it till you make it, I was that guy. That next event came.
Yeah, what happened at the next event?
It was a massive success. Huge
Wow.
success. I mean, we're talking
How many like as a multiple of the first? Was it
huge.
double
It
the
was-
first?
It became overnight. It became one of the largest exotic car events in the East Coast.
Did you make money on that event?
Yes, not much, and here's why. I was so consumed by just reinvesting. So I was just burning money in the business at that point. Whatever it took to grow this thing, I really believed I was going to become the most important auto event in the world. I mean, I really, in my mind, at that point, I mean, today, if you're in the car world today, there's supercar events everywhere. There's Cars and Coffee. There's all these different events. Every weekend there's something. Then, no, there was nothing. So this was so new to get people together in a social atmosphere and have champagne and cigars and all these different things that we were bringing in. We had jet companies as sponsors. We had real estate developers.
Did you have a team, or you were doing this all on your own?
So I was doing this on my own. And then this is when I met a guy that had told me he was from the stock, basically the market world. He said he was a hedge fund manager. He was a very flashy guy driving Ferrari, Maserati. And I was enamored by that. I was like, wow, this is who I want to be one day. And he said, yeah, we could, I'll help you and we'll put some money into the market and we can make 100x. So I started to be consumed with just being wealthy overnight. And we were starting to plan the third event. The third event was what put me on the map for good and bad reasons. And this is really interesting. We decided that we were going to go head to head with the world's largest Ferrari event. It was called Cavallino. It still exists today in Palm Beach. It's at the Breakers every year. We were going to host the event the same weekend. We were going to bring in some of the biggest cars from around the world. We were budgeting to pay collectors to bring in their cars. We were shutting down 2 miles of road on the waterfront in West Palm Beach.
Wow.
We were bringing in, our budget for that event then was like $300,000-$400,000.
Oh, wow. So this is the third event?
Third event. We're bringing in.
Sorry, how did that budget come around?
I was around also people, because of Palm Beach, I was around with people that were producing these crazy VIP tents, and they were coming in and saying, hey, we could do this, we could do that.
So they were, your budget was so high because you were getting paid?
The budget was so high because we thought we could build this thing, and we were building, at one point.
But where'd the money come from is what I'm asking.
The money was coming from sponsorships.
Okay, so you were
yes.
making sales.
Oh.
You weren't borrowing the money to do this.
No, there was no question.
Right. That's what I'm trying to ask you.
Yes.
Are you borrowing $300,000?
Yes.
No. This is from revenue.
Yes. Now, all of that money went out into other things, and this is where the downfall happened. I started believing in my own BS. I had not formally partnered with this guy, but he was like, this thing's gonna make millions, and we're gonna be on the cover of magazines, and all these different things. And he basically said, no, let's get VIP bathrooms. They're $100,000. It's not a big deal. Let's ship them in. So we were shipping in VIP bathrooms with marble floors. And no, we got to have Veuve Clicquot champagne for everybody. So we were literally burning money to make this event happen. And I did not understand anything about credit. At this point, I had probably 60, 70, 80 grand on my Amex card.
Debt.
He had basically had told me, hey, we should sponsor a polo team. We should start a real estate company. We should sponsor a polo team.
Sorry, who's this guy?
I won't say his name.
No, but I mean, who is he? Sorry, I don't need his name. But
so
how did he get to you? This is one of the guys who came out of the woodwork when he saw your success.
He came into Palm Beach. He had bought a house in Palm Beach, all on debt. He had bought a bunch of incredible cars, and he made such a statement in Palm Beach because here's this young guy, good-looking guy, cool, covered in tattoos, funny, charismatic, and who is he? And he had told everyone he was the heir to the De Beers diamond fortune, and all these different things, and there was all these different stories. So in my eyes, he was my investor. Meanwhile, all we were doing is the money that was coming in from sponsorships, he was literally just burning it.
On the event?
On the event and himself. There were moments where we had found out that at one point he's like, hey, I need like 30, 40 grand. I have a bill at Gucci, and I'll get you back next month. Don't worry. And I was so enamored by who he was that I was like, oh, it's not a big deal. Yeah, go to Gucci. It's all good. Imagine.
No, I get it. Well, listen, you're a young guy. You're in your early 20s at this point, right?
I'm in my early 20s. I don't understand this. Now, my dad and mom spotted this out, and they're like, dude, you're what are you doing?
They met this guy?
They met this guy. They knew him. Most everyone in my inner circle was like, hey, you need to slow down. Even his friends were telling me, you need to be careful. Like, the stories don't match here.
John, I hope you're not hard on yourself with this.
Not at all. This is the greatest thing that ever happened.
No, but when I say I hope you're not hard on yourself, I'm glad that you're not. But I gotta say, man, early 20s, and this guy rolls in. It doesn't matter who said what to you. You would not have veered off course.
Well,
you can't.
Greed at the time. Greed for me, and this, coming from the skinny kid that was made fun of in high school and nerd. Like, this was my ultimate vindication to becoming cool.
Yeah.
And everything he was saying, he was like, listen, if we do this, we're going to be on the cover of magazines. When I tell you, we were everywhere in the press in Palm Beach, like automotive press, lifestyle press, cover of Palm Beach Illustrated, like all these different things, we were there.
Yeah.
And that got to my head, and I really thought I was the next thing. And I think when we really lost concept of reality was we had this idea of creating this real estate company called Privilege, which, I mean, the name there is just like, it's so in your face.
Yeah.
Privilege Real Estate. And we formed it with two other guys that were these great, still dear friends to this day, Marlon and Lloyd. They had background in the real estate world. They were enamored by this guy as well. And we formed this real estate company, and we sponsored the #1 polo team in the world.
You figured, okay. Well, hold on a sec before we get into polo. The real estate concept is that if you have all of these people, you can get listings, and then you can arbitrage that into your network, make those sales.
Represent developers.
Right. And those two guys who came in with you, I'm assuming, were licensed brokers.
Yes. And they had the background.
So you're the media, essentially.
Yes.
They're the brokers.
You nailed it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I thought it was genius, actually. I thought it was genius that we sponsored the polo team because Carlos Gracida, God rest his soul, at the time, he was one of the greatest polo players in history. This is a guy that was friends with Prince Charles, King Charles now. And he was a legend in the polo world. So within weeks, we're taking photos with him. I'm there with my yellow Gallardo, got my black shades on, and I'm standing at International Polo Club. Every polo match that he won, I'm standing there, with the trophy. And I couldn't afford it. I mean, it was all, when I tell you it was all on my Amex card, I think I just paid off a year ago.
John, have you ever told the story before?
No.
So, I mean, but it's interesting because it's a good story to tell now in light of kind of all of your success and everything that you have. It's really an endearing story, and I'm excited to get to the part of when this business was created, but I don't want you to go too fast. So I just want to make sure chronologically, I want to get to all of this stuff. But okay, so this happened. I'm sensing a collapse.
Oof.
I'm sensing a collapse is coming.
Bigger than you realize.
See, I'm crediting myself. I'm pretty good at
You're
good. I'm good. Okay.
You're guide this very well. Seriously,
thank you.
This is almost like therapy.
You know what? It's funny. I had an interview with this guy, really Manning. He owns the gyms, the Legacy gyms.
Oh yeah, of course.
So Manning, he's the founder of these gyms, and we got into a lot of really personal topics about his family and stuff with his dad and whatnot. And he made the same statement. He's like, I feel like this is like a therapy session. So no, look, I'm really happy. I'm happy that you're opening up. I'm happy that you're opening up because I think that there's this myth around successful people that they were handed something, it came easy. People don't know the shit that happens in the early lives, and the thing is, no, but it's so universal, dude. I've already had so many interviews, and in general, I've met people throughout my life. Not once has somebody said, "Oh yeah, I just hit it when I was 25, and then it kept rolling in, and everything was cool." It's anyways, okay. So let's continue. So talk to me about. Okay. First of all, are we at the pinnacle of the situation?
We're at the pinnacle at this moment.
Okay.
There's
so
not.
You're with your yellow Gallardo.
Yes.
You're at the polo match.
Yes.
Sponsoring the team.
Yes.
Real estate broker. Car events.
Yes.
You're on top of the world. You're 21, I'm guessing?
Yes. I'm 22, 23 at this point.
22, 23. Your parents are going through this, so personally you have this going on. Disaster. Are you reconciling with your parents, or they still think you're a maniac with all this stuff?
They think I'm a maniac at this point. They're probably indifferent, but they have they both have their own struggles. So for me, I'm on my own. I'm thinking, how am I going to eat? These are thoughts.
You're thinking how you're going to eat after driving. You're driving the Lambo and thinking, how the hell am I going to?
I'm hustling it. It's it's a shell game. There's no question.
Yeah. But it can't be avoided. John, it can't be avoided at that age, coming from where you came from. And having that little tiny bit of success in the beginning.
I think it would have been, so the biggest impact to me today is when I say investors today, and we'll talk about this, both of my partners today never really put cash into our company. They were more mentors.
Yeah.
So that's like, oh my God, like that's.
I want to point something out. Sorry, I want to
Yes.
point something out. We're going to get into what happened to you later and kind of, I'm guessing, the slower kind of timeline of building up the
Yes.
current business. And here's where I think the big difference is when you have success at that young of an age versus as quickly as you did
Yes.
versus having success later on in life where you're building it. The difference, and it comes with maturity, is that the first scenario, the scenario we just talked about, is largely driven by ego.
Oh, there's no question.
Okay. The second scenario is now driven by the need to actually build something of value for the long term.
You nailed it.
And that's what I think we're sitting, and that's where we're sitting right now.
Yes.
But I want to say, from my experience, you can't. It's rare to have, especially when you come from humble beginnings where you don't have support. It's rare to have the second scenario without going through the first. Because I went through it too. And one day, if somebody ever interviews me, I have also a crazy story to tell. But okay, so you're at the pinnacle now. Talk to me about the crash.
So this would be our fourth event is coming up.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, bills are coming in. You have the financial disaster of 2008 that has happened. I'll never forget watching, I think it was CNBC or one of them, were watching Lehman Brothers, and our sponsorships start to slow. No one's spending money at this point.
Yeah.
And it's coming around to 2009, and this was at the end of 2008, and literally we're having to put deposits on fencing, security, VIP tents, food, beverage, all these things, and we are running out of any cash, limits on all of our credit cards. I mean, that's what I was living on, was the cash from sponsorships from the year prior and the credit card balances or whatever they were.
Yeah.
And I'm looking towards this partner and I'm saying, dude, we need some cash. And he's like, don't worry about it. We're good. He's like, my family, we're moving around some assets. He had mentioned that he was going through a divorce and he's like, we're good. I'm going to put $1 million into this thing in another couple months. So I had that vision of like us taking real money. The real money never came and things started to crunch. And that's when I started bouncing checks. Now, I didn't know at that time, I'd always had the mindset that I was going to make whole on things. Like, I always had that great foundation as a kid that, like, you take care of people, you do the right thing. But I didn't know how to make good on them if I didn't have the money. I couldn't go back to anyone. Didn't know, I didn't have more revenue coming in.
Yeah.
I didn't have ticket money coming in. I didn't have any of these things. So I really was just like, okay, oops, I have to write this check. It's going to bounce, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to take care of it.
Right. But
I'm juggling
because the money wasn't coming in, but your expenses were still there and the money was still due.
Yes. And I was very optimistic. I mean, I'm still very optimistic, but I was overly optimistic. I thought we were getting a cash infusion and then
From a bailout
Yes.
from your partner. Yeah.
And excuse my language, the shit hits the fan. I'm bartending. I was a celebrity bartender with Natalie Cole, Julian Hooker, the former NFL player, and a few other people at Beach A in Palm Beach. It was a celebrity charity event. Imagine I was considered a local celebrity at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm there bartending. And now at this point, I'm behind on my mortgage, months. I'm behind on my car payments, months. And I had blown up this yellow Lamborghini Gallardo,
So
blew
what
up
do you
the
mean
engine.
when you say you're just driving it really
I was
hard?
driving it very hard. I was very reckless. Blew up the engine, put a rod through the block. Didn't have the money to fix it. The car wouldn't be under warranty because it was a rental car. Couldn't get finance to pay off the car. End up in a lawsuit with a very good friend who it was his car. I'm getting notices that my condo is going to go into foreclosure. I'm getting notices that my car is getting repoed. And I am there bartending. I'm breaking up with my high school sweetheart at the time. And two cops walk in. And in my immediate reaction, my ego was like, damn it, somebody hit my car. Like, I don't know why. It was like this ego. And the cops walk in and they're like, and I can see they're looking at me. And I'm behind the bar. And I jump from behind the bar. And they go, are you John Temerian? And I'm like, yeah, who hit my car? They're like, you have the right to remain silent.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I'm like, what did I do? And they're like, I forget if they told me the charges. I had realized it had to have been from the bad checks. And there was probably 3 or 4 outstanding checks. So I like sort of knew. I was like, if it's not this one, it's this one. And I end up in the back of this cop car, and I'm like this, and I'll never forget. I started just laughing. And the reason I was laughing was I had no spiritual relationship. Like I had no religious background at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, I was raised Christian, but I didn't go to church or anything like that. And I'm sitting in this cop car, and the cop starts getting very angry. And he's like, why the F are you laughing? I'm like, dude, it can't get much worse than this at this moment. Like, if there's a rock bottom, I'm here. I'm here. I'm in the back of a cop car. I have no money. Everything's being taken away from me. And somehow something came over me. And I don't even know if cops play the radio. Like, I don't know if that's a thing. The radio's on, and it's Rolling Stones is playing. Can't Always Get What You Want. And I'm sitting there, and I start to, like, cry and laugh, but out of joy. And I had this, like, feeling overcome me that it's going to be okay, and that this is the best thing that could have ever happened. And I knew I was in deep trouble. Like, I knew. Like, the writing was on the wall. But it was this most incredible moment that it was like, okay, this is it. This is as bad as it'll ever get. My parents are in court. Everything's just done. And I think that is the greatest moment, the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my career.
Wow, man. I it's hard for me to, like, where to take it from here. I mean, that's wow.
So here's where it gets interesting. I'm
rarely, like, at a loss for words, but okay.
I get a booking blotter photo. Now, mind you, I'm in a dress shirt because I was in a dress shirt with a suit.
Yeah.
So I get intaked into Gun Club, which is a very tough jail. If you know West Palm Beach, Gun Club is not like it is.
But it's not you didn't go to prison. You were it was a holding cell. I'm assuming
it was a
at the
holding
police station.
cell, but it's tough. It's not
okay.
Like you ask anyone, it's one of the worst holding cells.
Right.
Now, the next morning, I get out. My dad bails me out. My so-called business partner didn't bail me out. He was nowhere to be found. And my dad is furious. Like,
sure.
We're already at a stressed relationship. He's livid. And to make it worse, at the time, not today, my wife actually says not today, but at the time, everyone thought I looked like Orlando Bloom. Orlando Bloom had exploded, and I had long curly hair, and it was funny because the next morning on the cover of the Palm Beach Daily News and Palm Beach Post was my booking blotter photo that says, "Party promoter gets busted for bad check. Orlando Bloom lookalike, blah, 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 blah."
Okay.
And it's an article just destroying me with
Sure.
my blotter photo. And at this point, I am getting just destroyed, hammered from every direction. Sponsors don't want to work with me. People don't want to work with me. My girlfriend's done with me. My parents are livid. Like, you could just say, like, my life's just imploded. And I didn't know how I was going to restart. I knew I had to. And I would say that I probably have blurred out some of this time, because I don't even remember how I got back up on my feet. But I do remember there was an integral point where I had no car, my apartment's done, didn't know how I was going to make money, and man, God bless, there was a Hertz rental car that I had rented on my credit card. It was probably the last authorization that went through. And somehow the credit card went through, and I was able to get this, I'll never forget, it was a blue Chevy Tahoe that I was able to get, and I got it extended for like a month. And I lived in it, worked from it, did everything from this while I was trying to pick up my life. And I was just so livid, and I was trying to figure everything out with my quote-unquote business partner, and I'm like, dude, what the hell? So this other event happens. It's not a, it's a...
The event went through.
The event went through. It's a visual success. It was a financial disaster. I ended up with probably a couple $100,000 of debt, lawsuits, a pending court case, which because of the amount of the check, so there's two things. One thing, I didn't learn anything about setting up an LLC, so it was considered a personal check. I didn't know about an LLC.
Right.
I'm a kid. Which it was a personal check. So that personal check as a sole proprietorship was basically, it was a grand theft. So I was facing grand theft charges. Mind you, I'd never been in trouble for anything in my life.
Sure.
So all these things are culminating. And after this event, I knew, like, okay, like, I'm out of this business. I'm a couple $100,000 in debt, and I need to cut things off from my friends and this community. The friends I had who I mean, we're talking partial celebrities, everyone turned their back on me. And the people that I wouldn't have thought turned their back on me were there for me. And it was really miraculous to see how many people did support me, but also how many people were like, I'm not touching that. That's a hot potato. And it really, if you go back to photos from that period, I was always in a suit, beautiful suit, dress shirt, badass glasses, loafers. And I never dressed like that again. And part of that was because I was always trying to impress people and impress a community. And the fact that everyone just turned their nose up at me after that, I was like, I don't care ever again about impressing anybody. Like, if I'm gonna wear a pair of jeans, it's because I like it. It's me.
I think that's a great lesson. I mean, it took you a lot to learn that lesson, and a lot of people haven't learned that lesson yet. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, you shouldn't in fact be pandering to a community. There's one thing to keep up appearances depending on what you do for a living.
Of course. And listen, there's moments. Listen, I still do have to wear a sport jacket, or there's moments where I have to dress that way. But I used to do it for other people.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for my own respect or for me.
So where did you go from here? So you're at the bottom here.
I'm at the bottom.
You're sorting yourself out.
I end up moving in with my grandmother.
Okay.
At this point, I believe my grandfather had passed, which was just devastating for me. I really looked up to him, who he was, his nature. He didn't care about money. He was always happy. He was always telling a joke, and he was a hardworking guy. He came from nothing. So I was in a weird place, and luckily, I still had made some great contacts in the car world. So I had all these incredible collectors that still believed in me, even though my name was tarnished online. I mean, destroyed. Yeah. And for many years, I mean, that is the best lesson for me today, or anyone young, that your reputation's everything.
Yeah.
It is everything. I mean, we live by that today.
Sure.
And I didn't understand the value of that when I was younger. And I just started trying to write business plans and think of ideas or how I could make money. And I started working for my dad again and cleaning cars and, and painting cars and doing whatever I could to just get back up on my feet. And it seemed impossible at the time. Everyone was like, file bankruptcy. And I just was like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure this out. I still had some optimism and hope. And this is the moment where I started to find my spirituality. And I started going to church, and I started praying, and I started just finding myself and what I wanted out of my life, rebuilding the relationship with my parents, all of these things. And I think it was this moment that I really just wanted to do things right. Whatever I was going to do, I was going to do it right. I started brokering cars. I started this little car dealership. I wouldn't even call it a dealership. I had one or two cars that I were brokering from guys that knew me. And
you were brokering it, meaning you wouldn't buy the car.
No,
you would have it, sell it on their behalf, and take a piece.
And I found a little angel investor that would put up money for one car, and I'd sell it and make my profit. And it just wasn't that profitable, but I could eat.
But it was a start, right?
It was
you were
a start.
starting something new.
But this was a moment where, listen, when McDonald's had 39-cent cheeseburgers
Yeah.
and 29-cent hamburgers, I was there.
Yeah.
That's real, you know? And this is, I look at this as the most important moment of my life, because today, when I have failures, they're nothing. It's like not a big deal. Like something happens, I'm like, whatever. Like, who cares? Like, we'll figure it out. Today, I always tell people, everyone knows me here in the office. They're like, oh, John, we'll figure it out. That's what I say, because we will. And I'm a believer of that. So I start to get back on my feet. I write this business plan, and I'm just making enough to eat and survive.
Yeah.
My condo gets foreclosed. My car gets repoed. Like, just clean slate, minus 200, 300 grand and in debt. And I write this business plan, and I send it out. And I'm just looking for advice from people. And I sent it out to Jan Auto, Supercar Life. And I knew that he had some great successes in his life and very smart business guy. And he calls me up when he sees the business plan. He goes, hey, listen, if you find my cars, I didn't know what he meant, they're yours for this business plan. I was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? So I wrote a business plan for an exotic car rental business. And when he had sold his company called Supercar Life, it was this program where you would bring supercars to the racetracks all over the country.
Yeah.
He'd put you behind the wheel with a professional driver, and they'd teach you to drive on a Lamborghini, Ferrari, Mercedes, Porsche. When he had sold his company, the gentleman that bought it never paid for the cars, and he took possession of the cars. So the cars were technically stolen at this point. And he's like, listen, if you find these cars, they're yours. I was like, wait, what?
So where were they hidden? I don't understand.
Didn't know. He had no clue. He had told me who bought the company. And he said, if you find them, like, listen, they're yours. Like, you can use them for your rental car company. And I'm like, what? This is crazy. So I'll never forget, I start digging, and I start calling mechanics and engineers. And I call all of the people that I had met during the success of Supercar Weekend and these car events. And I'm like, hey, these are the cars. You got to help me find them. So he flies into Palm Beach at the time where I was living. I was living in Palm Beach Gardens with my grandmother. Yeah. And he sets a meeting with me, and I'll never forget this. He looks at me in my eyes, and he says, listen, everything you've done until this moment, it's okay. You were a kid. And people can say one day, he was a kid. He didn't know any better. But the BS, the lying, the this, the games, all of these things that you did to get where you were, it's got to stop. You're a man now, and no one.
Why did he take such an interest in you?
I don't know. He just really, I think he just saw that I was a good person and I had a potential. And he's like, it has to stop now, because at this moment, at 25 years old, no one is going to forget about the things you did after this. You do something bad at this point, people are going to be like, that guy's he's a bad dude, you know? And I was shocked. And at first I was like taken aback. And I was like, who does he think he is? And it hit me. And at that moment, it was like, I got to do everything by my word. I got to do everything. Like, if I don't have the money, just say it. I don't have the money. Like, no more of this Supercar Weekend. Oh, we're going to do $1 million. 1 million people are going to show up. No more. Like, that has to stop. Like, this constant sales pitch that I was pitching myself always, but I was taking it to another level. The yellow Lamborghini Gallardo rental. You know, that had to stop. Yeah. So I got in this mentality of just brutal honesty. I don't have the money. I'm broke. Like, those statements. I'm gonna be successful. I'm not yet, but I'm gonna be. And it was like 2 weeks later, a mechanic out of Wisconsin calls me of a race team, and he goes, I know where the cars are.
All of them?
Yes, all of them.
They were all in one place?
All in
they
one
weren't
place.
Scattered?
They were hidden away in a warehouse. And he goes, I can give you the address. So right away, I get on the phone with Jan's attorney. We get the cars together. I think he sent his attorney and a local sheriff. We impound the cars. We get the cars back to Miami. And boom, overnight, I have a rental car fleet. And
sorry, how many cars?
It was 10 cars.
Okay.
And I didn't even know anything about the rental car business. I knew I had great contacts from the car show. and I just started reaching out to photographers and building this brand. And Jan actually had the idea. I was like, hey, I want to create a brand.
And
I don't want to
And is that the one you have today?
That's Lullavi, which we still have. It's not operating. We rent cars for print and film.
Got it.
But we're not in the rental car business anymore. We're not renting to a guy off the street.
Yep.
We're not, we don't have a fleet of cars.
There's enough of those guys here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that business remarkably, in a very short amount of time, started to become successful in Miami, where I was able to give myself a salary. I was able to get back on my feet. Jan was instrumental in helping me build it. He brought in the best attorney. He brought in the best accountant. Things that I couldn't afford or didn't even understand. And he's like, no, you need credit. You need this. You need that. Let's start building relationships with banks to have credit. Let's start doing these things. So Jan was instrumental in creating that. And everyone at the time thought I was insane. I mean, my dad thought I was insane again. Moving to Miami to do what? I wasn't talking to my mom. And I just had one focus at that point, which was probably the best thing in the world. Imagine moving to Miami with no interest of partying, no interest of drinking, no interest of, even girls at that point. I mean, you could say I was celibate, but my only focus was vindication.
I also think that you had a huge opportunity because of the fact that these cars were owned outright.
Huge.
You didn't have lease payments to make, and then you're just making kind of that small you didn't have that monthly nut, right, where you had to cover lease payments.
And that changed. That changed very quickly.
Why? If the cars were
in
yours?
year one, year two, Jan had gone through some personal things where we needed to start selling cars. And we had to start selling cars way quicker than we could to support the business. And at that point, we took in basically an outside investor to help us buy cars and help us grow the business. We were really struggling. From the outside, we looked like a very profitable company, but again, I didn't know how to run a business. I really didn't. I'm a great marketer. I know the cars. I have a great knack, again, for putting together like-minded, bringing in celebrities. Our opening party was with LeBron James and Drake. I mean, like, these are things that I just have an incredible understanding of branding.
Yeah.
That I was talented at, but running a business, I was not. We were losing money, and we had to take in outside capital. And it was remarkable because my faith came in again at one point where we were sitting around. We had cars sitting. They weren't renting. We had just signed a massive lease on a space here in downtown Miami.
Ouch.
I didn't have the money to redo the space. The market somehow was dying in Miami at this moment. At this moment, I actually had lease payments on the cars, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I thought at that point I was toast again.
Right.
And I got on my knees. I prayed it out. Like, I was like, please, like, I need this.
So what happened?
Contacts that I had made through the years of people that I had supported and people that I had helped and, like, genuine relationships called me and literally, hey, I have a rental for you. I have this. A guy came into Miami within days. And to this day, I wouldn't have survived if this young man didn't come into Miami. He came into Miami and he rented 7 or 8 cars for all of his friends for over a month.
Oh, wow.
That one transaction gave us the cash flow to succeed. It gave us the cash flow to continue. And then really that's when the business exploded.
Sorry. Before you get into the exploding business, was it a rapper?
No. It was someone that thought they were a rapper.
No, but they were.
But we had plenty of clients that were, I mean, we were the company that rented the cars to Justin Bieber when he was in town and got arrested. So
I saw that actually. Yeah.
We were when I say we were everywhere, we were in every rap video. We were.
So how did that happen?
Rapper.
How did you go from like this one transaction and how did it blow up from there?
It was this concept of like, hey, someone's in town, let's try to talk to them. Hey, someone's shooting a music video, let's put a car in the music video. It was this constant networking and understanding that branding is everything. Branding is key to everything else. I still didn't know how to run the business. So the business was still just, breaking even, but we were generating a ton of revenue, a ton of press, and we were growing as one of the biggest rental car companies in the East Coast, if not the country.
Right.
Everyone knew who we were. Our A-list clients, incredible. It was completely surreal to meet all these people.
So did you feel kind of like you were back? Did you feel that,
I felt I was back. Again, I was living very modestly,
Yeah.
but just that I could have a salary, pay my bills. I didn't have a savings yet, but like just that I could live, I could go out, I could eat, I could think about buying a car one day.
Sure.
That was incredible.
Okay.
It was surreal.
Okay, so we're at the point where now the rental business is picking up, but did the rental business go down before you started Curated?
So no. So I had started to really sort of just start to make money in the rental business.
Yeah.
And it's sort of funny because I always had this dream in the back of my head that one day, like, someone should create a really special car dealership for 80s and 90s cars. I thought they were so overlooked. They were undervalued, underappreciated, and it's what I knew best.
Yeah.
And it's sort of weird, like the first $20,000 I had in savings, or first $30,000 I had in savings from the rental car business, I went and got loans on a Ferrari 355 Challenge car, a 1998 Diablo SV. So I was buying these cars to fix up and then sell.
Kind of back to your roots, right?
Yes.
To what your dad had taught you.
We ended up, part of the rental car business was a membership program.
Yeah.
So you could sign up for the year and use points.
Yeah.
And we had acquired a company called Gentleman Drive, a well-known company in Miami. It was run by a group of young guys. One of the guys had just come from Spain. He was a former attorney. He was in the jewelry business. Really sharp guy, but the complete opposite of me.
Right.
So we had acquired that company. And really, I say this from the bottom of my heart, I did not want to bring this guy over. He was in a blue blazer, khaki pants, white
This
polo
is your
shirt.
current partner.
Yes.
What's his name?
Jordy Ricard.
Okay, yeah. I saw a picture of you.
Okay,
with
yeah.
him, yeah.
So we're the complete exact
Yeah.
opposites. And he's a finance guy, he's a numbers guy, very conservative, very frugal. I'm the exact opposite. Money doesn't, how do I say this? I appreciate money, but I don't worship it. And
Yeah.
listen, if we're going to have a nice experience or enjoy ourselves, let's do it. If I can share with people I love, very generous, comes from my grandfather. And not that Jordy's not generous, but Jordy is very tight. If he has $100,
He's responsible.
He's responsible.
Sorry, so tell
a
me
light
again.
word.
Sorry, I kind of missed it.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused.
So-
So you have the rental company.
So we have the
I'm
rental
trying to understand
company.
so you started talking about how Curated got started.
So we acquire this other company. Jordy comes over, and he's basically working at Curated, selling these memberships.
So Curated existed before you came along.
I'm sorry. Let's start that over. We acquire this company. Jordy comes over, and he's working at Lula V and selling these memberships. We basically were doing
So
what
he was your partner at Lula V.
No, he was an employee at the time.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes. So Jordy sees what I'm doing on the side, and I create this little logo that says Curated, and I'm putting it on my personal
Okay.
cars, and I'm fixing up this old Challenge car, and I sell it, and he sees I make like good money doing this, and he's like, "What are you doing with these cars?"
Where were you fixing them up?
Inside that location I couldn't afford. we were fine. And I was fixing them up there. I was doing it myself on the weekends.
That's where you stored the rental cars?
Yes.
Okay, so you created a little shop.
Yes, it was Lula V had this very cool art gallery and space where all the cars were. We hosted some incredible events there. And one of the events is actually a really cool catalyst to where the business grew. So he's like, "What? I thought cars were depreciating assets." I'm like, most cars are depreciating assets, but I really believe in this generation of cars as appreciating assets. And he goes, can I like get in on that action? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Now at the time, he says to this day that I hated him. I just did not see him as a like-minded individual as myself. He was very tough on budgeting and things like that. But the outside investor we took at the time, when we first started Lula V, was not the nicest guy in the world. And he was trying to pivot Jordy against myself. I wasn't aware of that. He was trying to hold back profits and dividends from me on a myriad of different things.
Because Jordy was running the books over there?
Yes. And he went to Jordy one day and said, hey, I want to sort of like kick John out. I want to cut down his, financial gains in any way I can. I want you to really run this thing. And it was wild because I didn't know Jordy that well. And Jordy comes to me and he sits me down. We're sitting in this barbecue place in Wynwood. And he says to me, listen, your partner came to me and he said this. And I can't do this as a person. Like, you're the face of this company,
wow.
Lula V. Like, he wants me to basically kick you out and take over this. And it's purely financial. Like, I don't know you, but I can't do this to you. You seem like a good person. And here I am. I at this point, I don't have the same respect for Jordy. We're exact opposites. And I'm thinking to myself, who is this guy that like is treating me like a dear friend? We're not really friends at the time. We worked together.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. I mean, I think he started to cry because he was under so much stress. He was actually told by this guy that if he doesn't move forward, he was going to be fired or removed.
Okay.
And I said, okay, let's figure this out together then. And within a few weeks, Jordy makes a statement that he's not going in this route. We sort of realize
he tells this other guy.
We realize that, okay, we're on our own now. We need to continue with this company. And Jordy says, hey, I would like to look at this vintage car business.
So do you feel that he identified it as a business versus to you it was like something like a side hustle that made a little bit of money, but to him he said, let's scale this thing?
So I always saw it as a real business, but I didn't want to ever start it prematurely. I didn't feel like I wanted to launch a brand or do something without having the right money behind me. It's a capital intensive business, and it's a, imagine some of these cars are 500,000, et cetera. So I never felt proud of launching it as a business while I was doing this side hustle.
Okay.
I mean, let's face it.
Okay, so then what happened?
So Jordy goes to some friends and family, and he raises $250,000.
Stop.
Yes.
So, but you had to have made a deal with him then for him to be a partner.
We did not yet. So he comes to me.
Sorry, he raised he raised $250,000 for you.
Yes.
And
overnight.
He just put it in the bank and he's like, okay, we got 100.
He said, we have $250,000. What are we going to go buy?
And you had no discussion about equity, who gets how much. You didn't have a shareholders agreement.
Nothing. We had nothing.
All right.
So we go out, we buy black Lamborghini Countach. It was a black car with gold wheels. I'll never forget this. I buy the car in 1987.
Yeah.
We buy the car, we fix it up, we clean it up, we do a few little things.
Sorry, when you say we, like
myself.
Okay.
At that time, I was the guy on the phone with my dad. Like, how do you fix this? Like
Jordy didn't have any experience as a mechanic.
So Jordy knows to this day. Jordy does not have knowledge about cars. He likes cars. He appreciates them. He's not a car guy.
Right.
I've inspired him to be passionate, but I'm the car guy.
Got it.
There's no question.
Okay, so you fix this this black Countach.
Fix it up, sell it. We sell it for like $370,000.
How much did you make on it?
Like $90,000, $100,000.
All right.
It was big. It was huge. In terms of margins, it's like insane. It was unheard of to have one of our first deals be that successful.
When you say the margins are insane, I just kind of want to justify it. Not that it requires justifying. I mean, it's a we live in a capitalist country. But the thing is that your value add in the restoration and getting this car, like, that's easily worth $90K, because it's not just the hours you put in, it's who the hell else knows how to fix these cars.
100%. And I completely agree with that statement. But at the time, for having zero brand equity, no reputation.
Yeah.
That was a massive margin. We have this first Countach.
Yeah.
He's shocked. He's blown away. He's freaking out. He's from Spain, so this is all new to him. And even the concept of like setting up an LLC in days.
He knows how to do that.
Well, he knows how to do it, but he was so shocked that the U.S. was so easy to build a business.
To
like the
register an LLC.
restrictions, yes, the restrictions in Spain there's so many restrictions. You're not just setting up an LLC and starting a business.
Sorry, that's actually funny. Sorry to interrupt you. That's actually funny because you and I were just talking before we sat down how I moved to America and like set up a business, and it's easy to do. Yeah.
It's easy to do, and it was really cool to see him excited about that as an entrepreneur. Now, at the same time, I had let him take over Lulavie. I basically said, you're the guy, you run this thing. Within a year, he saves us $800,000 in expenses.
Wow.
And he's just cutting costs. He's on employees. He is managing this business.
He's an operator. It seems to me like he's that piece that you were missing, where you're the marketing, you're the brand guy, you're the face, you're the relationships,
1,000%.
which is essential. But you need a business operator.
And it was essential for me to check my own ego at that point, even though my ego was not the same as it was in 2004, 2005. It was essential for me to say, okay, let me let go of this. Let someone with more talent run this.
I don't think sorry, I have to correct you. It's not a question of more talent. It's applicable talent.
Yes.
You didn't have the applicable skills. Look, I think you and I are very much alike in that I do, for our kind of interests in the businesses that we have with my family, I do what you're talking about. And we actually have a professional CEO that we hired who's like a proper, like, she's not like me, she's like a proper business operator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you're with Jordy. How many years ago is this? What year was that?
2013,
Countach?
2014.
Okay, so you're looking at 10 years ago.
Yes.
So what happened after that Countach?
Jordy went back to friends and family and raised more money, and then raised more money, and then raised more money, and we started buying.
Sorry, debt or equity, or
it was he raised money based on a 50-50 split of the profit, which
on a per car basis.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. So great.
It was
no debt, no equity.
It was amazing.
It was basically a profit share.
It was a profit share.
Brilliant.
It was a great deal for us at the time with no overhead, and it was an incredible deal. And people started to hear about it, and they're like, "Can I get into that?"
Well, because they're making a crazy return on their money.
Crazy return.
What are they making? Like 50%?
Yeah, it was crazy.
They're making a 50% return on their money.
Not
in
that
what?
much. It was like 35. It was
still 35% in a matter of what? 3 to 6 months.
It was amazing. Yes.
In 3 to 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
sign me up. You still have those opportunities? Probably not, right?
No.
You're okay now.
No. So all of this is happening, and then my business partner in Lulavie, that was really not the nice guy, starts sort of pushing and really he had gotten into some bad financial issues, made some poor financial decisions, and was really just selling cars, forcing us to sell cars, do things that were not kosher in the business.
Yeah.
And this is what I would say the next biggest pivot in my life, in our lives. We had just hosted Mr. Brainwash, the famous artist, in this insane event during Art Basel, where he actually painted one of Lulavie's Maserati. And he threw paint at this car, splatter paint. There was celebs there. It was this insane event that got the attention of Miami.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I get a phone call the morning after. I'm a little hungover. I'm tired. And I get a phone call from a family friend, and he says, "Hey, John, you got to meet this guy. He's an entrepreneur. He's in town. He heard about your event with Mr. Brainwash. He wants to come see your space." And our space was super cool. Like I said, it's an art gallery.
Yeah.
There's cars everywhere. This guy walks in. He has shorts and a T-shirt. And I think he was in sandals too. And he walks into this space and he's like, "What is this?" And he's like, and I'm like, "Hi, how are you? Nice meeting you." He goes, "Come here, give me a hug." All right.
It's affectionate.
Yeah, give him a hug. And we start walking around. I tell him, and I don't know why I was so open to him, but I start telling him the dynamic of, you've got this left brain and right brain.
Yeah.
Jordy and myself, we're working hard. We're trying to fix our business. I just open up to him. And he looks at me, he's like, man, this is so cool. You guys are the American dream. And I laugh. I'm like, I don't know about that yet. We're trying, but I really think we're going to be successful. He's like, man, I love you guys. You guys are awesome. He makes a phone call. He invites his family. His family comes over. We become friends with the family. He's like, listen, you don't know who I am, but here's one of my cards. And he hands us a parking ticket. And he's like, hey, let's keep in touch. Like,
Sorry, a parking ticket?
A parking ticket. And he's like, let's keep in touch. And I look at the parking ticket and it says Laz Parking. I don't know what it is.
Sorry, was it a business card and like that looked like a parking ticket?
Yes.
That was the...
Yes.
Okay.
So this parking ticket has his name, his cell number, and it's Alan Lazowski of Laz Parking. It says founder or whatever. So I look up Laz Parking. I'm like, oh my God, this is like one of the largest parking companies in the U.S.
They own lots. They own the land and they operate.
I think it's something like he has like 13,000, 15,000 employees.
Oh, wow.
3,000 parking garages. Like insane. I think it's the largest privately held parking company in the U.S. or in the world. It's mammoth business. Insane. So we keep in touch. And he's not a car guy. He doesn't like cars. But he's like, man, I really like your guys' dynamic, the two young entrepreneurs. So we're telling him about our business and what we're doing. And every time he's here in Miami, he's like, hey, let's go have lunch. And he'd meet with us and he'd be laughing of our stories. And he'd be like, you know, you guys are crazy. And I'm telling him like, oh, I'm trying to make this deal happen. He's like, so at the time we realized, me and Jordy, that we just wanted to focus on Curated. We had both met girls. We ironically, both women that we married. We'd been dating our girlfriends at the time. We didn't want to go out anymore. We didn't want to be part of the Miami scene. The rental car business is very tough. It is a 24/7 business. You are dealing with celebrities and just, it's tough. It's like running a small hotel with just everyone's wild. We had car accidents and thefts and all these different things. So we wanted to get out of that business and we were trying to sell it. So at one point we thought we had the business sold. We were super excited. I had this bad business partner just trying to sell cars, pull money out of the company.
Yeah.
And we were at a point where we hadn't taken a salary for 3 or 4 months, Jordy and myself, to make sure the employees were paid.
At the rental company.
At the rental company. And Alan heard that story and he thought it was really special. He thought it was really marvelous. And he's like, man, you guys are just really nice young guys. And our deal fell through to purchase, for us to sell the rental car business.
Yeah.
And we were just bummed. We were upside down a lot of the cars. We started taking on debt. We had all these things. And here, this little baby business, Curated, started to do well. And the only way we were funding the rental car business was Curated. And it was just it was tough. Now,
what was your turnover at this point in terms of number of cars you were putting out at Curated?
Maybe 3 cars a year.
Okay.
So it kept us eating.
Yeah.
Kept us eating. And I'll never forget, I was just dating my now wife, and I look at her, and I'm like, listen, we're like, this is not going to work. Like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent next month. Like, I don't know how I'm going to eat. Like, I adore you, but I'm just not in the place.
What year was this?
Mentally. This was about 9 years ago. And I said, listen, I'm sort of broke.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to make it. I am. But I don't know if this is going to work. And she was fully supportive. And she said, no, we're going to make this work. You're going to be fine. We're going to do this. So I had at the time, and this was like a weird catalyst. So I had a Rolex Submariner, the Hulk, the anniversary, the gold.
I have that one.
The green. Okay.
Yeah.
One of my favorite watches of all time.
The steel one.
Yes.
With the gold, yeah.
Yep.
With the green.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I go to a good friend who has a jewelry business, and I'm like, hey, I need to pay rent. Like, do I pawn this? Like, what do I do? And he goes, John, come on, are you crazy? And I go, no, I'm in a bad place right now. I go, I don't have this business sold. My other business is just it's bubbling. It does well when we sell a car, but we're not focused on it. And he literally tells me to get out of his office. He writes me a check. He takes the watch, and he goes, listen, I'm not loaning you the money. Here's the money the watch is worth. Whenever you're ready, you come back to me. You're getting your watch back. I'm like, dude, I don't know if I'm getting my watch back at this point. So I leave. I pay rent for another month or whatever it was, 2 months at that time, 3 months, whatever. I'm just like, And one day, Alan calls us, and this was like the same week. And he says, hey guys, what's going on? I'm here for the parking convention. He was the president of the National Parking Convention. Do you guys want to have dinner? I'm like, yeah, great. Let's have dinner. We'll tell you about our disaster. He's like, no, what's going on? So we go to Mandolin, and there's a table right by the inside. It's that first table. It's a small table.
Yep.
Fits like 4 people to the left as you're going inside.
Yeah.
And we sit at that table, and he's like, so how's the vintage car business? And we're like, man, you know, it's doing great. Like when we can do a deal, we're doing great. And he's like, how's the rental car business? And we're like, it's done. Like we're losing all this money.
Yeah.
Our other partner's selling cars. We don't have cars to rent. And I'm like, I had to pawn my watch, dude. Like that's where we're at. And he's just like, man, you guys are just, you're steadfast. You're so positive about you're going to make it. Like you're confident you guys are going to make this. And we're like, no, we're going to make it. We're going to figure it out. So he goes, do you guys have any car deals? And I'm like, yes.
To buy, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jordy's like, no. John's crazy. He's out of his mind. And I go, Alan, you'll never believe it. We found a Lamborghini Miura sitting in a barn. I found it by accident. It's been sitting since 1971. It's covered in all this junk, and we're gonna buy it for $850,000. And Alan's like, huh? And Jordy's like, John's crazy. You know what he did? He signed a bill of sale that we have to put up a $50,000 deposit, and that we have to come up with the money in 2 weeks to pay for this car. He goes, we don't even have the money for the deposit. Alan starts laughing. And he's like, he tells me, he goes, John, you're crazy, you're nuts. And I go, no. And I'm trying to explain to him the value of the car and what I found. And Jordy's like, see, I told you he's nuts. And Alan goes, no, Jordy, you're nuts as well for following him. But I love that John is so nuts. So he goes to me, he goes, what's the deal? And I go, listen, I found this car. I'm telling you, I can sell this thing in 60 to 90 days for well over $1 million. And Alan's just laughing. He's like, you guys are crazy. I love you guys. So he leans down. He picks up his book bag, and he takes out a checkbook. What is he doing? He's writing a check, and he hands us the check, and he goes, read it. And we're like, I'm going to get emotional now. We're both about to cry. And it's $50,000 for the deposit. So he looks at Jordy, and he's like, you go raise the $700 or whatever it was, $800,000. You go raise that money. And he looks at me and goes, you go buy the car, and you go sell it. And he goes, did you read the check? I'm like, yeah, $50,000. We're like about to cry. We're like, how can you do this? He goes, I don't want it back. Just pay it forward. And he writes on the check, pay it forward. I'm like, what? So we leave this restaurant and we're like, what the hell just happened to us? Like, here's this guy, like we don't even know him. And he's giving us a $50,000 check that says pay it forward. So we go out, we put the deposit on the car. Jordy goes out to friends and family. He tells them the story of this check. And what do the friends and family do? They're like, yeah, we'll help you raise the money. 2, 3 more guys, and we raise the money. We buy this Miura in a barn. We get the car back to Miami. I call my dad, and I'm like, hey, I need a huge favor. I need you to help me get this car started. It will not start. Send the car to my dad. My dad gets it started. Now, my dad's retired now for years at this point. He gets it started. We get it back to Miami. And we sell it within 65 days, well over $1 million.
Wow. Did you have to do a lot of work to it besides getting it started?
No, it needed everything. We sold it as a project. We sold it as is, as a project.
Wow. And so that was was that Miura the catalyst to where we are today?
Yes. So what that essentially did was Alan, who's not a car guy, and Jordy, who's not a car guy either, both saw the real value of the business. They saw what my knowledge was, and Alan really helped us to say, okay, let me help you guys. I'm going to give you a loan. I'm going to help figure this out. But most importantly, Alan taught us really how to structure a business and how to treat people. You know, when we first met Alan, he was talking about all these comments like lead with love and conscious capitalism and all these different things. And we were like, what is this guy talking about? Like, people don't run businesses like this. They don't, You know, they people are always thinking like, you know, Jordy comes from Spain where business is like, it's cutthroat. It's like, you know, like, how do I destroy my employees? How do I make as much profit as possible? So he was just mentoring on how to build this business. And we launched the business officially about 4 or 5 months later. Over time, we slowly closed the rental car business as a public entity.
Yeah.
We did not want to rent cars anymore. And that's where Curated started. We made the most important thing for Alan and for us was Jordy became a partner. So it was the three of us that became partners.
Yeah.
And within a year, Curated was essentially selling, you know, 10 to 20 cars a year, all very specialized cars. We were using investors' money. And at the same time, learning from Alan how to get real institutional money and going out to banks and reaching out to banks. But our goal was to just make sure our numbers were tight and the business was structured and built perfectly.
So now this company,
Can I have
Curated,
another water?
Curated, you've built now over the course of, I guess it's been 10 years.
I think formally, Curated's probably this year 8 or 9 years, formally as an entity, and it's completely surreal. Would have never imagined sitting here.
How many cars do you do a year?
We sell anywhere between 120 and 130 cars a year.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You're doing about 10 cars a month?
Which for our market is insane. I mean, it's...
But are you is there a lot of work to be done on
yes.
these cars?
Yes.
So between when you buy them?
Very intensive.
So, I mean, I'm just genuinely curious, and if it's proprietary, then feel free to let me know. But you must have a team of people for acquisitions. You must have a team of people for restoration. You must have a team of people for sales. Like, this is no longer just you doing it all, you know?
No.
Yeah.
And when we started, it was funny. I have photos of my wife, actually. Like, my wife would actually go with me to inspect cars, bring cars back to Miami. She would be cleaning cars with me.
You have 2 kids, right?
I have 2 kids.
You have 2 boys, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
okay, I remember.
So to see where we're at today we have, at any given point, 22, 23 people in staff. And not just that, but subcontractors and cars in restoration. At one point last year, we had 9 or 10 cars in restoration in Italy, between Ferrari and Lamborghini and other incredible artisans in Italy. We had 6 cars in Palm Beach at Rentec with famous AMG engine builders.
Yes.
And probably here on property, 20 to 30 cars at any given point that a various of 6 to 7 subcontractors are working on, whether it's interior, tires, touch-ups, mechanical. So it is a insane operation. And the beauty is, Jordy and myself, we've been able to build it so it allows me to do exactly what I want to do, which is chase cars. And treasure. To me, it's treasure hunting.
Treasure hunting. How's your relationship with Jordy? You guys friends now?
It's insane.
We're
best friends. You would never imagine, because I'm the t-shirt, jeans, backward. I normally have my hat backwards.
Yeah.
So, and the guy that's like, oh, that's cool. Let's do that marketing expense. Why not? That would be epic, And Jordy's the exact opposite. So we've built so much of a respect and trust for each other that about 5 years ago, we didn't need any outside capital. We'd given back all our investors their money. We got a massive floor plan from an incredible bank, which is very tough to get.
A floor plan? Sorry,
yes.
What do you mean?
So basically, we started with $3 million of institutional money. That grew to $6 million to $9 million. Today, at any given point, we have $25 million in inventory.
Wow.
And
owned outright.
Yes. And that turning point, which was sort of interesting, when banks started to say, yeah, we'll lend you money, that changed the game, because
now you're borrowing at like whatever Prime Plus.
Yes.
And you're not giving away
Yes.
50% of the profits.
And we were at a point about 4 or 5 years ago where we did not need any outside capital. We lived a nice little life, you know. Our wives both had just gotten pregnant, and you know we were in our grind. We're working hard, and the dynamic between Jordy and I and the respect we have, where he trusts me. You know, imagine at any given point, I'll buy a car for $4 million or $1 million,
Wow.
and he doesn't question that. And I trust him. He's managing the finances, the bank relationships. He's managing the entire business. We have such a respect that we didn't want to raise outside capital. A gentleman walks in one day, off the street, baseball cap, shorts, t-shirt. He goes, man, this is really cool. And he's like, how old are you guys? And we tell him, he's like, man, I love you guys are exact opposites. And he goes, you guys get along? And we're like, yeah, really, really well. And he's like, huh. He's like, I'd love to invest with you guys. I'd love to be a partner. We're like, no, we're good. We're fine. We're happy. Like, we don't need any outside capital. And imagine Jordy has developed such a tight business with financials and all of these things that we attracted the former CEO of Sequoia Capital, Jim Getz, one of the most important tech investors of our time. And we didn't need the outside capital or another partner, but we were like, oh my God, what an incredible guy, what a visionary. But when we brought him in to like dive into the business and understand, he was so impressed with our dynamic and how that's so rare in a business.
Yeah.
And his financial team went through our numbers and they were so impressed by what Jordy has done and impressed by what I've done. So it's been a dream and very surreal to be at this level and moving this many cars and working with Lamborghini corporate and restoring cars at the factory. And
what's the if you don't mind me asking, and feel free to tell me, it's none of my business, what's the story with this building?
So this building,
just to give context, guys,
yes.
How many square feet is this building?
So we now probably have about 60,000 square feet that goes to the end of the property.
Right.
We go all the way down to the end of the street.
But it's also important to people understand where we are. We're in Midtown, Miami. This is like one of the most expensive real estate in the city, if not like the entire state. So I'm trying to be polite. Is this your building?
No. So we've been trying to buy this building forever.
Okay.
We would love to. It's been in the owner's family for years.
Well, I can imagine, yeah.
They'll never sell. What's interesting for us is Alan forced us to take the risk when we first opened. He's like, you guys got to do this. And we're like, oh my God, what are we thinking? But it really, we're very fortunate today that our reputation precedes us.
Yes.
People can talk about Curated in the car world, and we're known as, sometimes people give us a hard time because they're like, oh, they only deal in the low mileage cars, but it's a good thing.
It's a great niche, yeah.
When we first started, people didn't know who we were. So to have this location was integral when we first started. Today, we would love something that doesn't need to be retail. We've talked about building something world-class. We need a world-class facility that can house 200 cars, house 150 cars.
Where would that be located?
We'd love it to be here if they would ever sell.
This facility will hold that amount of cars?
Yes, because it goes to the end of the street.
Well, you'd have to rebuild it.
Yes, you'd have to build up. You definitely would. This building needs a lot. Yeah. It's very old. And I think it bothers us at this point in our career, the fact that we don't own it and we can't make the investment we want. It does bother us.
No, but you just don't own this. You can buy another building somewhere else.
Correct.
It just wouldn't be this prime location.
No, and we don't need it.
You don't need it.
We don't need it anymore. I mean, 80% of our business is retention. It's built on reputation and building great relationships with our clients.
I think that you have an opportunity, and it's funny because this is like a reoccurring topic that I discuss with the people that I interview, is like, I think you've got a massive, you're going to agree with me. I know you're going to agree with me. You've got a massive opportunity on the content side to build out. You're smiling because I'm guessing you're already doing it, but you've got a massive opportunity to create content around these cars. I mean, if you're looking at 10 cars a month, to me, I see that as 10 YouTube videos a month, 10 podcasts a month, probably about 30 pieces of micro content, like going up as Reels and TikToks. That explosion, when that happens, then it won't matter where your facility is. I'm guessing you're currently shipping nationally or globally?
All over the world.
All over the
Yeah.
world. So your foot, like, I think that's the play. As much as you're a brick and mortar guy, just my opinion.
You are 1,000% correct, and we see it today. We would have never. We launched a YouTube channel. I didn't want to launch a YouTube channel.
You're inconsistent on it, though.
Very.
Respectfully.
Yes, very. I didn't want to launch it. I was over with, I think, the fear of what happened in my early 20s and being in front, being forward facing.
You don't have that concern anymore, do you?
No. But that fear when we first launched it, I was like, man, I don't want to get destroyed again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, putting yourself out there. And I always wanted to build a brand that was bigger than myself. Like, humans make mistakes. You know, people screw up. I try not to.
You're past it, John.
I'm past it.
You're way past it.
But I had this idea of building a brand that was way bigger than everything else. And Jordy was like, no, we got it. You have to do a YouTube channel. You have to do a YouTube channel. So at first I was very awkward doing it. And then when I just said, you know what? F it. I'm going to be exactly who I am.
Exactly.
I'm just going to tell the story of the cars. What you see is what you get. This is my passion. If you say I'm too nerdy about the cars, whatever, I don't care. And it's wild because for us, it's exploded where we sell cars now because of it. We have people that reach out to us. We had a guy call us from Texas, and they're like, man, he's like, I've watched your videos for over 2 hours. There's no way you could BS anything about those cars. You know everything about those details. He's like, what do you have to sell me today?
I can just I envision kind of the super detailed walk through the car, every stitch, every button, you know, every inch of the car that you restored. Like, you personally know each car, you know each car's story from the moment you found it in a barn to, you know, to having it shipped here, to everything that you've done to it. That is, I mean, look, it's massive in terms of the content opportunity.
Thank you. We're excited for that. And I think that's our next phase.
Yeah. And I think that the facility is, again, I'm just coming in as an outsider.
Yes.
But I think the facility is far less important than that content machine.
Oh, I agree.
That you can create, you know, because that's just gonna catapult you. I think the views and just the engagement from the audience and creating that community through these platforms around cars, I think that's gonna take off. Whatever cap, it's not even a cap. I mean, you're selling a lot of cars, but it just goes unlimited. I think the question's going to be, if it's not already, it's going to be a matter of how do you get the cars versus how do you sell them. The cars will already be sold. Like,
well, and it's cool because I that's sort of where we're getting now, and I think what to me excites me so much about YouTube and social media is it's inspiring the next generation and it's educating a next generation. We're not selling cars. We're selling a story, and
Absolutely.
if you like the history and you appreciate it, the car will sell itself. So I really try to position us always as historians. That's it. I'm just telling some other visionary's story, and if I like it, I buy it. If I don't like it, you know, it's funny, when we first started, I used to take trades of like certain cars, and maybe I'd be like, oh, I'll buy that. Today, no. I only buy what I love, what I honestly feel good about, what I can sleep at night and say, man, that's a cool car, you know?
Listen.
And it's funny because to see that translate to a younger generation, guys in their mid-40s building collections. We just sold a Diablo to a kid that's 29 years old that made, you know, an exit, you know, on a deal, and he's like, my dream car after watching your videos is a Diablo. That's cool. You know, and to see people walk away and appreciate the knowledge, like, if I can do this forever.
John, to me, this is the dream. Like, when we talk about people, like accomplished people, like money is one side of it.
Yes.
But you're truly doing what you love.
Yeah.
And you're truly helping people, like, find what they love through these cars, through this business. I want you to give me a tour. Do we still have time?
Yeah, of
you
course.
Show me some of these cars.
Totally.
Before we wrap up here,
Yes.
I have one last question
Yes.
for you. What does your dad think of all of this now?
It's oof. It's crazy.
I know.
Dude, so there's moments now. So I'm gonna just go, if we have time, I'm gonna go on a few moments.
Well, I'm listening. Yeah.
We gave a year ago or 2 years ago. So about 4 years ago, I bought my dream car. It was like insane.
Which car?
It was a Lamborghini Diavolo SC30, a purple car. My wife was...
That purple car from the beginning of the story.
Yes, yes. My wife was pregnant with our first son. We didn't own a house. We didn't own any... We lived in an apartment, and she let me do it. So imagine, cheers to my wife. Shout out. She's the GOAT. And that was cool. That was awesome. It was incredible. But then you get to a certain point, and you're like, okay, like, that was cool. I barely drive it. It's a great investment. And I've bought and sold the same car over and over a few times. Now I have the same car, purple, just lower mileage. I'll never sell it. And we do a Christmas bonus every year. And we're writing these bonus checks, and me and Jordy are like feeling really good about this. And we're like, this year we're gonna do a massive Christmas bonus for the staff. And we're giving these bonuses, and it was the weirdest thing because at the end of that moment, Jordy looks at me and he's like, man, I've never felt this good in my career. And it hit me at the same time. I was like, man, like that recognition and that vindication, like it wasn't buying the car, it wasn't buying a house, it wasn't any of those things. It was being able to do that for people that support us daily, and that was like, wow, like that hit us both as this is the best part of our careers ever. To see people walk away and start crying and thank you so much, thank you so much. And then to be able to buy a house for my family, that was crazy. I never thought I told you some of the headaches of my roof right now.
Yeah.
Again, I never imagined I've even had those headaches. Like to be buying a roof, like that's epic. To watch my wife stick by my side and like as like a boxer in my corner.
Yeah.
It's epic. It's so incredible. And then to have my dad tell me, actually on camera, your grandfather took it here. I took it to another level. You went to the moon and stars. Like you surpassed us by how many times? And to hear him say that and mean it, and also have people from around the world now call him and say, dude, your son, did you see what your son did? Did you see what he bought? It's insane. And I think today I didn't, to be able to look back on this entire journey of failure after failure after failure, and to have those vindications, it's put me in a really incredible space. And it's magical.
He's proud of you, huh?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you.
John, this is an incredible story. You know, it's funny, like, coming in here, because you and I had met a couple of times. I had no clue as to the depth of this story. And I'm really happy that you shared this with me. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
And now I want to tour these cars.
Let's do it.
Take me through some of these cars. I mean, how do I pronounce this car again?
Koenigsegg?
Koenigsegg. Okay.
Koenigsegg?
I mean, I've actually never seen one of these in real life.
So they're super rare. So this is really cool. This is more on the newer side than we would ever have. But what's special about this car is, to me, this is the last of a generation. Analog, manual transmission.
This is a manual transmission car?
Manual transmission. This is really the car that put Koenigsegg on the map. Swedish hypercar manufacturer. Christian von Koenigsegg is a complete genius. He built this car to beat the Bugatti Veyron as the world's fastest car. Behind you. And what's super, super special about this car is he's now become such an important brand. He's considered one of the most important hypercar manufacturers. But at the time, you couldn't give this car away. Like, they could not sell these cars. So there's 14 in the US. Most of those cars were unsellable for years. And about 2 years ago, we're always looking for ways, like, how do we evolve our business?
Yeah.
We're not just going to sell 80s and 90s Lamborghinis all the time.
Sure.
I think this is the last generation of cars that we'll get into, because it still represents our values of manual transmission,
Yes. What year is this car?
So this is a 2008. This is a special car. It's actually one of 2 CCXR manuals. It was actually in the Fast and Furious movie as well.
And the doors open.
The doors are super so here. And this is a design that Koenigsegg designed.
This is exclusive to Countach. I've never seen doors like this on anything.
Yes. And the guy's a genius. I mean, this is, imagine, there's not a part that leaves the factory in Sweden. This is all, he does the carbon, he builds the engines, the wheels, every bolt. It's truly, truly miraculous.
It's his engine?
His engine.
What's this car worth right now?
This car today, honestly, my opinion is one just sold at auction, one of the race cars. So there haven't been that many public transactions because there's not that many early cars.
Yeah.
Today he produces more cars. I think he produces about 100 cars a year. These early cars, a car just sold at 4.2 million, 4.3 million. Koenigsegg CCGT. So it was a one-off race car, not probably more rare than this car, but it's hard to even put a value. On a lot of our stuff, you'll see, it's sometimes hard to put a value.
So if someone comes in and they want to purchase this car, like how do you, when they ask you how much?
We're asking 3.2 million.
You're asking 3.2 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I think is worth it, especially in the long run. There's the end of a generation. Everybody's going hybrid.
How do I close this door?
Yeah, so watch, it's super easy. If you go slow, and it's light.
I don't want to break it,
here.
man.
So here, you can actually watch. You can let it go.
That's incredible.
It's wild, right?
What are some of the specs on it? Like,
So
what's the
this is
horsepower?
a little bit over 1,000 horsepower.
Damn.
Yeah, it's.
Have you driven this?
Yes, it's insane. It's.
Okay. Let's go. Let's
So,
move on.
you know what,
Is this the purple? No, that's not a Countach.
So that's a Diablo. This is actually a purple Diablo. I can show you my actual car. We should go to the yellow F50 is a big one. So we deal, and I have to uncover this because this is going to Pebble Beach this year. This is a one-off car. This was built by Lamborghini. This is the Gallardo Concept S. They built one. It was shown in Pebble Beach in 2005. Lamborghini was supposed to produce more. We just sold this to a collector in Europe. One of one prototype, basically.
Yeah?
Yeah, of course. No roof. And this was, for me, this is surreal to have. This was a very famous car to actually have a one-off car. Completely insane.
What do you do when it rains?
You're screwed.
Keep it inside.
You don't drive it in the rain.
Fair.
Then this is we're actually finishing preparation
F50?
right now. Yep. So one of 31 Giallo Modena F50s. So this will be going to Pebble Beach this year. We had to pop the headlights out and the dash. They're known for the headlights fogging. So you actually take apart the headlights, you clean inside, and the dashes have this like oil-based foam that's in the dashes, so it actually goes bad and buckles. So the dash is currently in Italy. It'll be redone. It'll be here on the 2nd, and then this will go to Pebble Beach. But that's a super special car. Another one-off there, Diablo GT2. We can talk about that.
Is this a
Diablo Roadster.
Diablo Roadster.
So Diablo Roadster.
Manual.
I would say everything here but the Veyron is going to be manual. and some of the older AMG Mercedes.
Not this thing.
What's that? This is one of 3 in a manual.
Stop.
Yes.
Is that one of your criteria?
Yes. You know what? I think I don't know if, I think there's, the modern manufacturers, I think, are losing touch with some of the enthusiasts. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of our job is
but it's
to...
supply and demand, right?
Yes and no. I think it's a consideration that the manufacturers aren't thinking exactly what the enthusiasts want. A lot of people, they want the combustion engine and a manual transmission.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I don't know if I could drive it every day.
Yeah, and that's the trade-off. Is it transportation or pure fun?
Yeah.
I know I'm not driving a manual every day.
Yeah,
I did for years, but this is another really special car. This was actually this is a one-off. Lamborghini intended to go racing. This is a factory works built Diablo GT race car. It's called the Diablo GT2. There was one. It sat in the factory museum in Italy until 2015. We bought it. It's an honor to have it here. I mean, this is insane.
And how long have you had it?
We had it a few months. We've had it a few months. It's actually, we try to turn inventory every 90 days. This is such a piece though that like, this has to go to the right home. I know that sounds weird, but sometimes you choose.
Sure.
You want to make sure cars go to the right collections and the right collectors.
Show me this this Countach.
I should show you a better Countach.
There's a better Countach than this one?
There's a better Countach.
Look at this one.
I got, you know what? Hold on. You want to go in the back? You gotta see. I gotta show it.
All right. Isn't this like some crazy multi-million-dollar car?
Yo, everything here is like crazy.
No, but this is
Ferrari Daytona.
I've heard of this car.
Yeah,
this is like a multi-million-dollar
Ferrari
car.
Daytona. They're just under $1 million. A Spider would be 2 or 3 million.
Yeah.
Iconic 70s Ferrari. This is sort of as old as we get.
Yeah.
We deal in a lot of Lamborghini Miras. I'll actually show you a Mira that we're preparing for Pebble Beach.
How does this drive?
I mean, dude, it's you're not taking this to get groceries, but man, Sunday morning, cool weather, the sound of that V12, it's intoxicating. It's like, here's the purple.
This is yours.